Hey, it's Andy again, and welcome back to the third and final episode of We Do A Little Season 0. After this episode, we'll be taking a break to up our production quality and record Season 1. You can expect to hear more from us about Season 1 later this year. This episode, Deeze and I are joined by Redbeard. He's a crypto OG, NFT collector, investor, educator, and just an all-around great human. We get into what a special time we're in, the stories of crypto before NFTs, and a lot about his day job working at a school and the importance of education. I think that part's really fun. Thanks for listening, and please enjoy We Do A Little Redbeard.
This is Andy.
Yeah, I'm Deeze.
All right, well, welcome back to the third now podcast to be named at some point. Really excited to be here. It's been a long week, so hopefully we can keep up the energy for like an hour or two.
Right.
But yeah, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I mean, is there intro music that we're going to have?
I think we're going to make some at some point.
Yeah.
A little jingle.
Like,
Yeah.
I didn't hear it, so I'm like trying to, in my head, think like what kind of music it would be.
I mean, we'd love some input for sure.
Well, it definitely should be something more psychedelic in nature.
Yeah, I mean,
But I think you guys should get like a Web3 musician to like.
What if I just used one of my homework NFTs from Pop Wonder as the sound?
honestly, that'd be like
That would
pretty
be amazing.
I have a bunch.
Well, do you have the provenance of that song?
They let you use your generative
Then you
song.
have to do it. I think.
That'd be pretty
Because that makes a lot of sense and exactly what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
What if we like from our like company multi-segment one and
Yeah,
use that?
Right.
Whatever one it is, no
Yeah.
matter what.
No matter
It
what.
could be, some of them have like an 8-bit vibe. There's one that's a Mortal Kombat thing that literally
really?
has like the Mortal Kombat fighting dialogue in it. If we had that one, I don't know if that's the vibe we're trying to, fight.
It'd be a very different podcast.
It could be a very different podcast. That would be like the trolling podcast.
Yeah.
Or like somebody we like who doesn't like, Deeze, we put him on just to like have a fight.
Who doesn't like Deeze?
No, well, unfortunately there's some people.
Yeah.
But we always I was just saying this last night. I didn't introduce myself, did I?
No, it's okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, we're here with Redbeard today. Redbeard
What's going
is
on?
a good friend, a big collector, and a big viber. And I will let him give himself a better introduction than that. But
So my name is Redbeard NFT. My real name is Benny. I guess like I'm doxxed, so it doesn't really matter.
you're pretty doxed. You post your face.
Yeah, I post my face. I post my kids also. I totally understand the Anon thing, but like I was around for like crypto Twitter also.
Yeah.
And everybody was Anon then. And it just gives me bad vibes like every time I see like the people some people are Anon, like you're Anon, like I'm like it's totally fine. But some people you're just like, ugh, like I just want to know who they are because like and I
They
have
have too much influence, too much power.
too much influence, too much power, and it just gives me like this bad vibes and mojo from like 2016, 17, and like it was. I still think I have PTSD from
Like you're about to get dumped on by
Yeah.
someone. You don't know
every
who
single time.
it is. but
Anytime it's a non, I'm like, okay,
they got 50,000 followers on Twitter and
Yeah.
they're tweeting tags. They're just dumping.
yeah, they're just dumping on. They're taking whatever NFT I own, they're selling. That's how I always feel.
I don't even know if they made it to NFTs.
Some did. I think that. I've been around since like 2013, 12, 13, I don't know, something like that. I didn't really get into it more until like the end of 2013 and 2014. I was really into it. Before that, there wasn't even crypto Twitter. It was like Bitcoin Talk and Reddit was like the subreddits were ridiculous. I was just saying to last night to AC Collector, we were just reminiscing, and I was saying, I remember. There was a time I was in the Polo box. Remember Polo? X?
The troll box.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah.
troll boxes.
And I remember someone saying they're going to start a rumor that Vitalik is dead so we could all short Ether. And I swear to God, it was the craziest thing. And then I don't know if he did or what it was, but there was this crazy rumor that Vitalik died. And everybody believed it. Ether dropped. It like literally fell. And then Vitalik had to sign the blockchain or something like that to prove that he was alive. It was a nutty time.
How did, I think that might be an interesting place to start too. Just like in 2013ish. How did you said you got super into it. How did you go from like casually being acquainted with it to, becoming super into it within a year?
I had like a very good friend. He invested in this thing called Sponge Tech. Never hear of it?
I don't think I have.
Never heard of it.
So it was this company that claimed that you could wash your car with a waterless sponge. Don't ask me.
Oh,
yeah.
So it's like a magic eraser.
I don't know. It was the craziest thing or something like that. And it like blew up. It was like a stock that like blew up. It was like insane. Like they were like the main sponsors for the Mets and Yankees. I swear it was crazy. And it was obviously, I didn't know anything about stocks or scams or anything. And it turns out it was like, obviously this huge pump and dump stock scam. And my friend got into it. Excuse me. It's a long week. And he like lost all this money in it. And I remember he was like, but he had the right idea, I guess. But he turned to us like, a few months later or something. Like, he's like, oh man, I think this crypto stuff, it's a really good idea. We should check it out. And we were like, no, this is going to be like the sponge. The sponge,
This is going to be a rug.
And I think we all just started buying slowly. And then we just like, I don't know what happened. It's just like, at first I don't think I fully understood what the blockchain was at all. And then it just like slowly I like started to realize how like, well, it's pretty cool. I was always like a gamer and into tech, and I'm big we could talk about I'm big into education. It's like what I do for a living. So like STEM and like engineering and all that stuff. But I'm not a coder by trade. And then we were playing around with it for a while. And then I think Mt. Gox was like 2015, right?
I think so. That was before my time in crypto.
Yeah.
I think it was 2015.
Mt. Gox happened, and I remember it was this insane, like everybody like talks about this crash right now, and like they're like freaking out and how bad it is. I remember clearly like people writing their suicide notes when Mt. Gox crashed, because what people don't realize is that there was so much of the Bitcoin that was owned was in Mt. Gox at the time. So all these people just like lost all their money. Like people would write their notes and then we wouldn't see them in the rooms, and we're like, I guess he's gone. Like we didn't know what was going on. It was like really crazy. And I remember like how they were at the offices. It was like really just an intense sort of time. And I had been already telling people about crypto, and I got all these calls from people who were saying to me, oh, Bitcoin got hacked.
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin got hacked.
That's all I heard. And if you actually go back to look at the newspaper articles, all of them said, like in the major newspapers, like Bitcoin got hacked, Bitcoin got hacked, Bitcoin got hacked. And I looked at my friends and we looked at each other and we're like, wait, like that's not what's happening here. And I think that was like sort of our aha moment. So like even though we owned crypto, it fell from like remember it was like at $1,200 at the time, but you have to understand like there was people who had thousands and thousands of Bitcoin, so they were celebrating like they changed their lives with this. But it went from like 1,200 to like I don't know, like $100 or something.
Yeah,
and it like was this insane crash, and we just backed up the truck and just bought everything that we could at that moment.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
And then
you had the foresight to be like, oh, this is
I just got lucky.
Temporary with Mt. Gox. Like, this isn't a problem.
It was just that one thing. It's like once they said Bitcoin got hacked, and we were like, you can't hack Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, there's a like information asymmetry here.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you know like there's something like missing, that like I'm a very big believer like when the world thinks that they know something, but you have like that insight to know, excuse me, that it's not true.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, that's what I have to bet on.
Yeah.
Because 100%. You know that inevitably that truth will come out.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things that's been really interesting, like talking about that crash, and even like the bear market in like 2018, 2019 and the COVID crash in 2020, I feel like all of those like downturns in crypto, there was, this non-trivial part of it where you're like, oh, it may never come back.
Right.
And so it's like, I think that this thing is cool and I think it has a future, but there is like this very real world where all this actually goes to zero and it's worthless. Yeah. And I feel like that's the biggest difference right now is it just feels like we've kind of crossed like a bit of a level where I don't think it would ever go to actual zero. And like, I think it's pretty clear at this point that it's not worthless. There's a lot of very large companies doing things.
Yeah.
And so there's like, it sucks that the number is down, but there's a little bit less like fear of, oh my God, have I just wasted the last 7 years doing this thing that now is irrelevant?
I mean, if you like scroll back, like zoom out and you just like do total macro, the tech is there, right? I mean, this makes sense. So especially with inflation and everything that's going on in the world, like this, it has to happen. I mean, the question is, how does that happen? What does the price of Ether look like? I mean, I say this all the time I have friends who did very well in the market. I didn't do poorly at all. I'm fine. But, we spoke about this. Like, I probably should have been worth like $500 million right now. I'm not. But like in all intents and purposes, I should be. But like for those reasons you said before, like every time it went down, I'm like, oh, crap, I have to sell. I have to buy. I have to sell. Like it's just like it's mind fuck. Like that totally.
You just like smoked a joint, chilled, just bought a little more, and just fucked off.
That's
for like 7 more years.
If I had just smoked a joint in 2014 and done nothing, or 15, I literally have so much more money right now. But and even at the time, it's funny because I remember me and my friends would say like, okay, all we need is 1,000 Bitcoin, and we're just going to take the 1,000 Bitcoin and put it away and never touch it. But of course, like you get to 1,000 Bitcoin, it's like, well.
I mean, what if I had 2,000?
If I had 5,000 Bitcoin.
The 2,500 would be pretty nice.
Right. It's like it just didn't.
All I need is 2.5x on a shit.
Right. Exactly.
First Bitcoin.
Right. Well, the 2.5x. Forget that was like it's like 1,000x, and it was like in one night. And like, oh, just made $300,000. And like most of the people who are making this money, also you have to remember, and even the bigger people who are whales in the space, to be honest with you, they didn't come from money.
Yeah.
Crypto wealth and generational wealth are like two completely diametrical. Like they're not the same thing.
Yeah.
So when people make a lot of money, you didn't have money. You just like couldn't comprehend.
100%.
Right? But I remember people who I know who are very wealthy, and they were like begging me like, you have to sell. I'm like, no, you don't understand. No, I do. And it wasn't even they were saying it was a scam. He's like, just take off the table. I'm like, no. I'm telling you, this is the future. And I was right and he was right.
Yeah.
And I didn't fully understand that.
I think that's been a really interesting thing. Like, I mean, at the point where I got into crypto, I got in like late 2016, early 2017, and I had like no frame of reference or understanding of like how do you manage money, how do you like have a financial plan in your life.
Right.
And like I still am very much so figuring that out. But like when I got into it, I was just deep in college debt and was like, this tech is pretty cool.
Right.
I feel like I could build StockX on Ethereum and like maybe this will get rid of my college debt.
Right.
And like, at any given point, I'm like, I'm not selling for cash. Why would I do that? Like, sure, I could make a little bit of money now, but I could hopefully pay off my student loans later and all this stuff. And it's like a weird way of thinking that you definitely have to evolve into like over time of, okay, maybe I should take some cash.
I remember like the first time I got cash for it, it was like a weird feeling. I can't remember what year it was, but it was like sort of like really getting popular, probably 2016. And I met some guy. My cousin knew a guy who wanted to buy Bitcoin but didn't want to buy it on the market.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So he came to I met him in his van, like on some street near my house. He gave me like $30,000 in cash. It was like the most ridiculous thing in the world. Like I redid the upstairs of my house and whatever. But like, I remember having that much cash in my house, and I said to my wife, I was like just going through it all the time, like paying this, but I couldn't pay my bills with it, so I had to figure out things to pay cash with. I'm like, I'm never taking cash out again. It's just so stupid. But in 2017, I started selling. I invested in real estate, so like I was really happy I did those. Like I started hedging a little bit more. I wish I did more, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, right.
So the portfolio management part for me, it's like, all right, like my first cycle, like I drew down like 100%. Like I lost all the money I made in 2018. Like this cycle, I'm only down like 75, 80% from all time high. So like if next cycle, I'm like 50% from all time high. Like it's just learning to take off.
You're just getting better and better and better. Yeah.
Like the more screenshots I take, the more chips I take off the table. When I'm telling the wife like, oh yeah, that Vegas house looks like pretty fucking easy and doable. Probably should make sure that it's easy and doable 100%. And not like a month goes by and it's like, yeah, we're gonna have to like get a place with 3 less bedrooms and like not the big
No
private.
more pool. Oh yeah. What I learned is when there's a Wall Street Journal article about your NBA gifts.
Yes.
Doxing you.
Yeah, you sell a lot of the NBA gifts.
Yes. I like
the Doge guy. There was the article about the guy who's a millionaire off Doge. He's like, no, I'm holding it.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold it.
And now he's like worth 20 grand.
And this idea of hodl, I was just saying this to Snowfur last night. I was like, which is such a vibe. Like, we could talk about that also. But I said the word hodl is wag me.
Yeah.
Like I'm
packaged and said
they literally just took the script, they crossed out hodl and they wrote wag me. I'm like, okay, here we go, let's do it again.
Yeah.
It's hodl for NFTs.
It's hodl for NFTs. It's the same thing, and I'm just watching it. Like I'm like, oh man. I remember when people started saying, I'm like, this is hodl. Like, this is it.
And you know what? When I think about wag me, I think about the end of the summer last year.
Yeah.
But I think about punks being 140 ETH.
When they
that was the top.
Yeah.
So I actually sold one of my punks at the top. It was like one of my proudest. And not because of just the money.
Not the one I bought, right?
No. and not just because of the money that we made, but like it was like the first time I ever sold on the top, like ever for anything in like 12 years I've been around.
And was it like a situation where you were like, it feels like there's a lot of froth, like I am making the educated decision
Yes.
Like I used to bought a punk.
So Zanzibar and I were like really sitting there. We were in this insane profit off it. It was so stupid, And I said to him, I'm like, look, at some point this is all going to crash, right? And I thought initially the crash would be when they said one punk would be worth $1 million. And for some reason in my head, I saw this like newspaper article clipping, like this is worth $1 million, right? But then it got to a point where like we got these crazy bids coming in like around that time. And I just said, I don't know, I'm like, what are we doing?
Well, I mean, at that time, for the people who like weren't around and paying attention, punk's like 140 ETH, and the floor was like $450,000.
Yeah.
So from the floor, you're like, okay, if it gets to $1 million, that's another 2x. You probably bought the thing under 20 grand. If I guess like it. So at that point,
crazy.
You're looking at the risk reward. You're like, do I really want to try to milk this last 2x?
It's like, I remember like right from when the 104 punks were swept off the floor, like up to that point, it was just total chaos.
Yeah.
And it was like, I remember being out at dinner with my fiance and sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, someone just bought 100 punks like in one transaction. Like, what the fuck is going on? I have to go home. Like, there's like stuff is happening. And like from there to like when they hit the top, it was just like a total fever dream, I feel like. And I feel like the funniest thing for me is I had 2 punks that I sold like 2 days before the floor was swept. And I think now, if I were to have sold them now, I'm in profit from like I made more selling them back then
than you would have now. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really just a matter of timing. But like, I remember when we sold it. Also, like, the other thing was, I said, "Listen, we have a lot more ether." Like, I mean, the truth is, we didn't take any of that ether, put it into cash. Yeah. But that was when
you're stacking ETH.
So I definitely this time. Excuse me.
That's all right. I'm struggling as well. At some point, I'll cough.
I'm just thinking about how crazy August was. That was the craziest. The last week in August was also the only time I ever sold a top. And it was also, I was not home at my private keys.
Wow.
I was visiting ice bags in not Miami, Destin, Florida. And when we were vibing there, I remember on the way to the airport is when Visa bought that punk. I told my wife, I said, if we cancel this trip, I think I can make $1 million.
Right.
Like today. But I ended up not canceling it. And I saw that news at like 6:30 a.m. Like we're in the Uber going to the airport. I see the Visa buys a punk and I'm just like, I have 20 ETH in my phone. Like I can't even buy or flip a punk. Like I'm like distraught. I'm like, this is the freest money of my life. But anyway, we go on the trip. My Fidenza sells for like 292 ETH. I listed it as a joke before I left and I couldn't sell anything else. So by the time I got back, like Punk's floor was already dipping, art blocks were already dipping, and I like almost regretted being on vacation because it was the only time I felt like where I would have been able to sell a bunch of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then instead I just held it hoping like, oh, maybe in September it'll bounce. October it'll bounce.
November it'll bounce. December.
And it just didn't.
So I want to take one step back.
Sure.
So you're in Bitcoin in 2014.
Yep.
And then you're trading shit coins, I have to assume, at some point.
Yeah,
what's the progression from your friend getting you into Bitcoin to crypto Twitter to then eventually now the NFT stuff you're doing?
So basically we got into this one coin, the same friend, something called Stratus.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So like we were really early on Stratus. And I started getting into it was before Discord. It was what was the other one we were using?
TeamSpeak maybe?
Telegram?
No, it was I don't know the other one now. They sold to Microsoft.
Skype?
No.
They sold to
Yammer.
Microsoft.
Oh my God.
Teams?
Whatever. It was I don't know. It was something. It was another sort of type of Discord.
Yeah.
And they started a room. This is when like rooms started, and I became one of like the mods of the community, and they nicknamed me the General. So it was just a crazy time because Stratus, if people actually know the coin, it was like the real first shitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I shouldn't say shitcoin. It's still around. It's still on some.
Still kicking.
The team is great people, but
Altcoin.
Yeah, altcoin. It was the first altcoin that really kind of like went parabolic.
Mm-hmm.
It was like at 5 cents, 25 cents, and it ended up like at $20 at some point. And I remember like we all had a ton of them. And I was like in the room every day on my phone, like, you know, hodl, hold the door.
General.
Yeah, the general. Hold the door, like we're going to war, like, you know, and every time we passed a coin, like and I was like getting everybody crazy, you know, and it was just like riling people up. And, you know, to me, I didn't know anything else. I didn't, you know, I was a little naive. I didn't realize that there's people pumping things, dumping things, and I wasn't in those conversations. I remember one time one guy DM'd me. He's like, dude, like, you're killing it for the community. Like, trust me, like, we're going to repay you. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. Like, he's like, a bunch of us, like, you know, behind the scenes, we have a lot. Like, I met the team. I went to London. I went to, like, these conferences. Like, you know, and people saw me. I had, like, a sweatshirt that said the General. And, you know, long story short, obviously, Stratus went right down. You know, I kept a lot of it, but I had sold some on the way down finally, and I still have a bunch. But that's how I got like into this sort of like crypto Twitter community. I wasn't like as popular as some of the other people. There were some like really big names. Like, funny enough, like Michael Nye just came back on, which is fascinating to me because he's
he was gone for like 2 or 3 years.
Speaking of podcast guys, man, we gotta get him on here. That would be a trip.
That'd be really fun.
I never met him actually I think I met him in person once, but I mean I remember those days of crypto Twitter influencers,
like that 2017.
Oh my God, it was so it was like it was just cringe on cringe, but it was so entertaining.
Oh yeah, I mean it was really crazy though.
Oh my God, it was
and
nuts.
Like literally a tweet would move like compared to, I feel like people are way more like skeptical of people on Twitter now, and there's still a lot of people who will buy whatever someone tweets about, but like back then John McAfee was literally tweeting out a coin of the day, and
he was doing coin of the day. And what was crazy was that people were like actually buying it.
Yeah.
I remember a lot of money made rest in peace. He made a banner for him, and he made a banner for like a few other people, and then he made me one. And John actually followed me. I didn't really speak to him ever, but he actually just he said something under my tweet about my banner. This is on my old account.
Yeah.
And somebody like I remember like in the Stratus rooms like, do you think you'll get him to buy Stratus? I'm like, dude, I don't know.
That's the next coin of the day.
I don't know John McAfee, you know, like, but that's what it was like.
Yeah,
you know? Like, if that guy
totally
bought
crazy.
it, like, let's buy it, and like everybody got crazy about it.
And that was the top. That was like December 2017.
Yeah.
I was visiting my wife's family for Christmas that year, and that was I was sitting there on my like $200 Chromebook trying to buy the coins of the day on Binance.
Yeah.
Trying to catch the pump.
I was like trying to write a bot that would like immediately read his tweet and then buy the
And
coin
then buy
and
it.
then sell it like 10
and then
minutes
sell
later.
10 minutes later. It was like it was craziness. I remember that time also. I went away. I'll tell you. I remember that time exactly. I went away with my friends, the same guys who were like with me who got in early, and we went to Disney World together with our kids, and we were just watching Bitcoin go down, and down.
At Disney World.
At Disney World.
With the kids.
We're checking it and we're like, what do we do next? And we were like trying to buy like, okay, this is not over. It's not like we were trying to convince ourselves that. And like, oh, let's buy this coin and let's buy this new ICO. Like they were still pumping out ICOs trying to exit, right? And I'm just like, we were all like in denial.
Yeah.
You know,
I kept buying shit coins all summer.
Oh my God. Well, like I couldn't let
I would take a 50% loss, buy a new shit coin.
Right.
Take a 50% loss on that shit coin a month later, buy a new one, and then compounded those 50% losses into a little bit of Bitcoin that I brought over to BitMEX to try to make it all back.
And then you thought you were trying to make it back. You're like, oh, yeah, I got this. I'll make it back. And then
10x.
10x.
It's just a 10x long.
No,
like,
that's
it's not that.
Because we were making 100x's. Like it was nobody's business over there.
If I can just catch one Bitcoin dead cat bounce that's even if it goes up 50%, if I can just 10x it, like I'm going to get back to almost where I was.
Right.
And I'm going to be happy.
Right. And which is what's happening here with NFTs, right? It's like, okay, well, if there's a dead cat bounce on this NFT, it's like the same exact.
I mean, yeah, I feel like we've seen
I'm
that.
still in denial about more NFTs.
I feel like we've seen
You're
that
still
this
waiting for the
weekend.
dead cat bounce, right?
Like it's been pretty low volume and everything's kind of like crept up a little bit with NFT NYC and all of that.
Yeah.
And I just like, to me, like, I don't know if I really am super excited to buy a Moonbird for 20 ETH right now.
Exactly.
I don't know.
I'm kind of like, all right,
I was excited at 14. That's when I swooped in.
Yeah, that was a good price. I mean, I like Moonbirds, but
Oh yeah, nothing about Moonbirds.
Oh, yeah.
That was just the first project.
Just to explain.
But
example.
I just remember. So I remember like us being in denial, and I started selling some just because like I don't know why I did. I just sold whatever, and I made some investments. And I'm fine. Like I kept my job, and I made way more money than I had that I put in. So I have like no regrets. Like, do I have regrets? I didn't make $100 million, $200 million. It would have been nice, but like
that's
I'm
next cycle,
right? But but what happened was like 2018. That's me now. But in 2018, I didn't feel that way.
Yeah.
I was, I didn't realize until this year that or maybe last year, that I had like tremendous PTSD, because I was so engrossed in everything that was going on. When it was like over, like I skipped DeFi essentially. What happened was around that same time, there was a fire at my school. And I just like kind of dropped everything to focus on rebuilding my school. And so I went from like one trauma to like this other trauma. And when everything started going up again, I was conducting NFTs, but like I was turned to my wife and I was having such a hard time just dealing with it. I was like, I missed everything again, even though I didn't, just psychologically. And that's when I realized like I was totally fucked up from that, losing that money. And I was like, oh no, I kept saying to myself, like, I'm okay, but I wasn't, and I don't think it was the money. I think it was the high to that low. Like, you spoke about that, right? I mean, it was like, it's really like, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's, I wasn't like, I was depressed. I was really upset. And, I don't think we speak about that in the space enough about mental health because like, it's just like a taboo thing in general in our country. But like, it took me a real while. Now, NFTs has made me feel better about that because of the people that I'm meeting. It's not a lot of scammers, the artists, like, I have a whole thing, like that's my whole feeling on that. But that was a really, when you go from having nothing to having everything and then just going back, it's really tough.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that I say to people a lot is like crypto will always be around because it's just a better version of Vegas in a lot of ways. And I think like people like 100% have like gambling addictions when it comes to crypto. Yeah. And with that comes really, really high highs and really, really low lows. But then also just like with gambling, if you like understand it and realize that some of the stuff you're doing is gambling and you're able to kind of like make choices being cognizant of the fact that like this is a gamble and I could very much so lose it all. It like totally changes how you interact with everything 100%. You're doing.
Yeah. And like to be very honest, like up front, like whatever, I guess, like I'm not embarrassed, but like I have bipolar disorder. So for me, it was like really intense. Now, interestingly enough, it helped me focus. So I was like all the other things that usually bothered me didn't, but it was so ingrained in it, like I couldn't see anything else. But those high highs and those low lows, like really could fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, So
No, I mean, you touched on a couple interesting things there. Like, number one, we'll get into it in a little bit, but like the educator, teacher, school, fire aspect. But number two, like the mental health part for me, dealing with the most recent drawdown, I was putting off a lot of feelings and emotions. And like right before NFTMIC, I just had like a mushroom trip, and I was like, all right, I gotta like deal with this shit before I go to New York, because if I don't, like, I feel like I'm gonna be in a bad headspace for New York.
Yeah.
So like 6 hours on the floor rolling around with friends with you pillows, like tears, weed, whatever. It's like got through it, and it was like, all right, like I feel like I have enough again. Like you said, like you go from nothing to everything.
Right.
And then it's like you just need to find what enough is.
Yeah.
And then once you have enough, it's like anything extra is nice, but like you don't need it. I feel like after that trip, I was like, I still have enough. Like even with every crazy thing that's happened, like look at where I was 2 years ago.
Right.
And then look at where I am now. It's like very
also like what is enough? Like what do I need?
Yeah.
You know, like it wasn't even financial. Like, you know, I was getting everything I wanted. Like, yeah, do I not have a private jet? No, but like, you know, I was financially okay.
Yeah.
I had you know, 2 beautiful children at the time. Now I have 3, but like I had a wife, I had a house. Like everything was fine in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like this euphoric sort of feeling that crypto gives you. Like when you, and again, that's the difference between generational wealth and like crypto wealth. Because like generational wealth, they're just born with it. They're like, yeah, this is like,
this is life.
This is my life.
Like,
for us, it's like, well, I'm going to live that life.
Yeah.
And we forget the life that we lived. Right. And I think that that's like, it's so good that you did that, because like I think that more people need to do that. You know, I see sometimes people write things like, you know, about like how they need a break or whatnot, but you know, it's okay to cry. Like it's okay it's okay to like feel this. Like it's not easy. I mean, like I've been saying this, I said this talking last night also to a bunch of people. Like there's people probably who have like one Bored Ape, you know, and they bought it at like 5 Ether, and now it's worth like 100 Ether. But like that's life-changing money, but they're not going to sell it. You know, I was just talking about this last night again, like with like Dave Krugman and some guys, and that's a scary feeling to think like, you know, like imagine you're here in New York, you don't have any other money, but you have this thing sitting there and it's worth like, you know, 500,000. Now it's only worth 100,000.
Yeah.
Like that fucks with your head.
Yeah. And
I think people aren't talking about that enough, because like we're in this like, you know, no, we got to be in the community and let's hang out and whatnot. And like, you know, I keep writing you see sometimes I write, I'm like, it's okay to sell. Like you're allowed to, like you're allowed to take profit and you can still be part of the community.
If you made friends in the ape community and you sell your ape, you know, I'm pretty sure those friends aren't just going to vanish.
Right. And
like,
if they do vanish, then they weren't your friends.
Yeah. If they say like, dude, you don't have an ape, go fuck yourself, then like you don't want to be friends with those people.
Right. You don't want to be friends.
Like I was reflecting on the last week on Twitter the other day, or last night, I think. And I said like, I don't think I've been to any profile picture parties except on Sunday night, the Wrecked Guy show.
Yeah.
And it's not like, because I don't like my profile pictures or anything, but like I feel like my connections with the artists and collectors, the art galleries and the other events is just stronger. And the issue with the PFPs is my friends don't own the same PFPs.
Right.
I own, you know, multiple Moonbirds, Clone X, whatever, but like I have to own enough to get my friends into the parties as well. And if I can't just like show up and like snap a finger to get 10 people in, then it's like I can't go to the party because I'm ditching all these people. And for me, it's like I've come full circle with PFPs. I joined Punks because I needed that community to learn about NFTs, to make friends.
Right.
And then now that I own, 50 different profile pictures, like I'm not attached to any of the communities anymore. I'm just attached to the friends I made.
No, I mean, it's like very tribal. I mean,
yeah. And I think one other thing to touch on what you were talking about on crypto Twitter and all of that, I think it's really hard, and it takes just time in crypto Twitter to realize that like the only thing that's ever really like publicized and talked about is people flexing how much money they've made.
Yeah.
And so there's so much like FOMO and just like there's a lot of opportunities to feel like you are less than, because no one's ever retweeting the guy who's like, man, it's been a really tough week, had a really bad loss, like what a bummer. But like, hey, this happens. It's only just, you know, the guys who are now have 500,000 followers and are just posting whatever Rolex they bought this week. And
I try to post my losses a lot.
So you do, and I think that's I definitely see it more in crypto NFT Twitter that people show their losses, but crypto Twitter was like, it's like
I know why.
Yeah, like why?
Because NFTs are completely transparent. Like there's no hiding it. Like if I'm showing off my NFTs. You find my wallet. You can see every trade. Now there's a bot called NFT Whale Alert that's telling you if I diamond handed something or rugged myself. Whereas like in CT, a lot of the transactions, they take place on exchanges. A lot of the actors are anonymous. Like we were talking earlier about like in Uniswap summer 2020, I was taking influencer calls on Twitter, cross-referencing them to addresses that were buying tokens, and then making a list of like, these are this influencer's wallets. And like, that's how I would follow the money back in 2020. And now in NFTs, it's dumb easy to do because everyone shows off their profile picture and you just go to the collection. You're like, all right, sort by hoodie, 3D. Okay, there's Deeze.
And then you find them.
Whereas like in crypto Twitter, they're just posting screenshots from exchanges.
I mean, you could have like hidden wallets, but it's much harder. I mean, it was just like very much like I have a friend who's like an excellent poker player, right? He's phenomenal. And you know, he always jokes around about like how he says, you know, everybody's a great poker player, right? Because they always tell you how they win, you know? So like, and that's what it felt like in CT. Like all they do is tell you about the wins. Like, oh yeah, it's like oh, I won here. I made money here. Nobody ever wrote about their losses. And I think that's why crypto Twitter just sort of like totally imploded on itself, you know? I mean, there's very few survivors. I mean, like Icebags was one of those guys who kind of survived, like Bitcoin Bella and Nick Cora, like some good people. I didn't actually know Icebags, but like some of the other people I knew, and some of them were great people, and like, you know, a lot of them weren't, but
a lot of the friends I made stuck around.
Yes.
Like the Loomdart, the Craig, the Donald.
So it's funny. I never knew Loomdart, but like he was around for a while.
Yeah.
I only bought Wassies because I'm like, dude, this guy's stuck through everything. Yeah. I bought like 10. I'm just like, fuck it. Like,
I did the exact
I'm like, I still hold them.
I'm an advisor for the Wassies.
Are you really?
Yeah,
I love the project. I think they're adorable. I have no idea what's going on in the project. And then you know, I spoke to him. I didn't really speak to him much. I don't really know him.
He's a hard man to get a hold of.
Yeah. So I think I DM'd him a couple times, and he did. You know, he answered me on a few times, and I've been on the Discord and stuff. But I kind of made a bet on him. Again, I have no idea if it's gonna make it or not. But like, I bought a couch, and we bought one. Like, we bought all the different ones, and I only did it because I'm like, well, if a CT person is doing this who's been successful, like maybe there's a chance.
Yeah.
You know? And he's building it. I mean,
his reputation is everything to him. Loom's a great dude.
Yeah.
He is hard to get a hold of. He's always traveling. He's always at different times. He's like in Dubai, then he's in Europe, then he's in Miami. But they're doing a bunch of ambitious things. Like you're gonna see like Wassies and like a virtual reality first person shooter.
Yeah, like
it's just like
it's a little crazy.
Maybe I don't know if I have to clip that off. That's Gloom. But like there's certain things that like he's just so ambitious and passionate about. Like an opportunity comes up and he's like, we have this treasury and like
He's all about the treasury and like.
And you also know he doesn't care about the money.
Yeah.
He's been around long enough. He's fine.
No, he's fine.
Yeah.
I think like he actually really cares about the project.
He does.
I'm really curious to see how we can kill them. Like that's like so I keep asking him. I'm like, I just want to know how we kill them.
You'll be able to shoot him in the game.
Well, I feel like, but I think if you shoot a Wassie, it doesn't die. Like you have to find
it respawns.
It respawns. Yeah. It's like can't drop it from a building. You can't stab it. You know?
Yeah.
So I'm really curious how he's gonna find a way to kill Wassies. That's why I always ask in the Discord when we pop in. But again, that's like betting on people. Like you know.
Yeah.
So like and here I did the same thing, and it's funny. I was talking to Micah Johnson about this. Like that's I think what's so special about NFTs is that like we could make these bets on brands and people. You see, and it's not a knock on Bored Apes. Bored Apes made a brand from their NFT, which is fine, right? To me, what I think is going to be the most successful thing is actually making an NFT from your brand already. So like creating your brand first. You know, that's why like listen, people want to shit on Friends with You, but to me, I'm always like, nah, like they get it, like they understand, like whatever the floor is, but like their vision, I totally get. Like Micah Johnson, like Aku, it wasn't about the NFT. He has this whole grand vision of like this amazing sort of like brand that he's building. The NFT is just one part of it.
It's how, and it's cool because it's like it's created this really unique way for him to bring a bunch of people along the ride with him.
For sure, yeah, and he he speaks a lot about that, and most people don't listen. And I think there's going to be NFT projects like that, like Parallel, same thing. Like I'm very big into Parallel. Like they're building a game. Sasha's building a game, and he's, the NFT is part of the game. Yeah, but it's not everything. Yeah, and I think the more that happens, the more successful these projects are going to be. So,
yeah, totally.
I even think Fiwo is like that. Like I think Fiwo is a brand. Yeah, right? He is a brand, right? Yeah, more than Beeple. Like no knock at Beeple. Beeple's like an artist. He's not building out his brand as much as Fiwo. Fiwo wants to build like Disney World. Yes. Right? Like to me, that's a big difference. So like we bought we're number 35 on the paint drops. Like we made a big bet there. Nice. Like I'm like, and we all said together, we're like, we will hold this for 5-10 years. Like the guy's 19 years old.
Yeah, he's not, and right? Nothing that he has done up until this point would ever indicate that he's not going to keep going and keep doing everything he can to just keep making cool art and build the brand and everything.
I mean, like Walt Disney wasn't 19 when he started, right? Yeah. Or he was, but he didn't make it until he was much older.
It's crazy, the internet, the exposure that young people can get. I always think about this with NFTs. Like I collect work from kids who are 14, 15, and it's like very good work too. And these kids are very thoughtful. They're not like me when I was 13 playing Call of Duty. Right. Like every time, like Jasty's an example. Every time I see him, he's creating. He has a notebook on him and he's drawing. Like at a party, like he'll just be chilling.
We had him paint on Monday live. Yeah, he was such a nice kid. I'm like, thank you so much. Like he's like, no, thank you. I'm like, no, thank me. I'm like, dude, like this was amazing, And
we gotta talk about Monday. Like that was a crazy event. So for zooming out a little bit for the people who don't know, Redbeard helped host this massive block party. That was from noon to midnight. It was
1 to 10. I heard people say 4 a.m. though. That's what I heard. But
it was insane. It was at the Seaport. It was 8 movie theaters, a whole bunch of stuff going on all day.
It was awesome. I think it was what happened was that Dave Krugman, myself, Zanzibar, and W. Savage were my partners. We threw a couple events together, and they were like smaller scale in Denver and LA and one in Miami. And they were all really, really small, but they were really successful. And we wanted to do something bigger. And Julie Pacino said to me that she wanted to host her movie in New York for NFT NYC. And I was like, why don't I just rent out a movie theater? And then I started looking at movie theaters, and then I was like, why don't we just rent out a giant movie theater, And everybody's like, okay. And I called Roger Dickerman and Jay and Silva, Vlad Ginsburg, just friends in the space. I'm like, listen, why don't we all get together and just let's do this, To their credit, they thought I was nuts, but they're like, okay, why not? Roger actually, he was totally, with it, but they had done a party together before, and Dave also is always like, yeah, let's do whatever the fuck you want. And then
Dave's always down for a good time.
He's down. And we just started, getting sponsors, and it kind of grew and grew. And what I really wanted to do, or I should say, is have a different experience. So I kept going, again, not just because I went to NFT conferences, but going to crypto conferences all these years. In 2015 when Coinbase had a little tiny table, right? I remember signing up for the month after they opened. And that feeling of crypto conferences of being sort of you go to these conferences and at night you have these, smashing parties where you can't hear the person and you're yelling and screaming and talking. And to me it's weird because I talked to Dave Krugman a lot about Web3, and we're having these conversations on Twitter and private messages, but in real life we're doing it the exact opposite. It doesn't make sense. Yeah. So I said, let's build an event where we do what we do online also there. So it's not, it's you could grow, you could talk, you could meet everybody. I was nervous with nobody was going to show up and stuff. Time Magazine, to their credit, Keith Grossman was we sent him the deck, and he's like, all right, this looks amazing. They were one of our main sponsors of Parallel also. Like, they totally believed in us, and they took a chance, and shout out to them. Like, Keith, in a lot of ways, holds a lot of the space on his shoulders. It's pretty incredible.
He definitely needs more credit than he gets for what he does.
I think he's going to get credit later on in the future. Yeah. And I think he knows that. I think he's like really smart in that he saw 2000 and what happened in 2000 and he sees it happening now, and he knows like if he sticks with this that it's going to work out. Yeah. So, but we went with it. We had 8 theaters, and it was just like packed, and we had schedules in every theater. Art was going on, speeches, panels, movies, all Web3. Live music, all Web3 music. We had like live Twitter spaces. It was like really, we had the Twitter spaces actually even on the metaverse with VSpace. Like it's like crazy event. And then upstairs was still, a bar, and we had a mixologist and food, and everybody kept coming up to me and said, how much is the drinks? And I'm like, they're free. And they're like, what do you mean they're free? They're free. And what the best part about it was that, and I'm very hard on myself, so I like the next morning I was always like, okay, I could have done this better, But like the amount of people that were there that were artists was just shocking. Like we had 1,000 people every hour on the hour inside that building.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they were all vibing. Like they were all talking about what was going on. And the people who I invited that weren't in the NFT space, which was really exciting, came up to me after, and I invited a lot of those people, like more like fine art people and people that like in general just have money. And they said to me like, okay, I don't understand this layer of buying ether to buy art, excuse me, right? But I totally get the art, right? Which is, I think, our challenge here that we're trying to fix, right? They're like, okay, now I understand. Like, because like some of the stuff they saw, like, dude, you see Raph
Grassetti?
Yeah, like on a giant screen. You're like, what the fuck is this? Like, that's me. You see Tyler Hobbs, you're like, holy shit. Like, and then you see some of the photographs that you guys, like, it blew people's minds because they're like, I don't think we almost, when we see it on a small screen, we don't fully understand. Like, this is fucking beautiful art. Yeah. And that's why I truly believe it's like an art renaissance that we're in the middle. We're in the start of. So we really wanted to make that event. I think it was like hugely successful. Obviously, a lot of people now are coming up to me and saying like, oh, let's do this again.
You're like, I need a break, dude.
Yeah, like, I don't know. And like, if we get the sponsors, I'm like, okay. And then, but it was. I thought it succeeded in what we wanted to do. I mean, there's a lot of things I would do very differently. But because I'm just, like I said, very hard on myself. But otherwise, like, honestly, like, I think that's what we need more of. Yeah. Like, and that's not to take away, like, the Dead Fellas Party was amazing.
No, but like,
we should have those.
Yeah.
But like having events where we could build in real life, like we're all here. We're all here finally.
Yeah.
So let's build in real life, not like just have insane, like, nothing against Steve Aoki. Actually, he's a great guy. And like, honestly, I love what he's doing for the space. And, but I mean, I think I've seen Steve Aoki 7,000 times, and which is fine. But like, I would like to see, Ed Balloon, Ollie Channon.
Yeah.
And I would like to also like, have a conversation with Steve Aoki about what he thinks about growing the community
and not get your voice dirty.
Yeah, and not lose my voice or get a cake thrown in my face. I'm sure Steve Aoki probably would want that also, know? And I think those are the conversations that we wanted to happen, and everybody told me that they did. I mean, so I think it went well. I mean, everybody was talking about it. So,
I did not expect that many people to show up to the movie.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you for including me.
No, dude. I
had tried to invite all the artists on that list I had. And, I inevitably missed a few, but like, I did not expect the theater to be fully packed.
It wasn't just packed. I mean, were you there?
I was not able to get in. By the time I got there, I was at a dinner. I showed up and they were like, they literally said it's too full. You can't go inside.
Yeah.
So like,
and I was like, God damn it.
At like 10:25.
Yeah.
So like the movie ended at like 10:35-ish or something. But there was just a group of people lining the hallway from the door all the way to the front of the movie theater just to get in. And then the people watching the short film were not happy. Yeah. Because everybody in the hall was like trying to come in to get a seat.
It was there's something. I mean, I don't know. Dave put a tweet out. I don't know if you saw it, where everybody was like, "Look,
like the panoramic." Of
I saw that. That was cool.
But I said to Deeze the next morning. I texted him like, "How amazing!" And this is like the feeling that I wish the whole community would really like understand and see. There was people doing standing ovations for artists when they popped up on screen.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucking incredible.
It's really cool.
Right? Like, that's what we're trying to build here, right? Like, that, it's very nice to have a Bored Ape reveal, okay? Get it. But, you know, it's not the same as a photographer putting up their pictures of their life work and, like, people just celebrating that.
Yeah.
You know?
For some people, that was the first time they were like in a gallery,
right? Like, I think we took 65 artists that were never shown anywhere, and we put them up on one of the theaters, like emerging artists. Like, it's just like, a lot of those artists came up to me after your thing and the rest of the night, and they're like, "This meant so much because I felt like I was able to show my work and talk about my work," and I just truly, truly believe like this is where we start. You know, I was in 1963. Kennedy was assassinated. I think it was 63, right? And 62 was the Cuban Missile Crisis, right? So like the world was like in total chaos at that time, right? Like 1962, I remember my dad was telling me, he's like, everybody was scared, like they were gonna fucking like just die, you know. And because they didn't know, and there was no fucking internet to tell them the truth, right? So like, you know, they're doing drills to go on their tables and shit because like that's gonna stop a nuclear bomb, whatever. And then
a table,
right? And then Kenny gets assassinated, and nobody knows what's going on, and it's like really crazy stuff. In that time, exactly that time, Andy Warhol opened the factory, right? You know, and changed art forever, right? And you know, somebody would have said to Andy Warhol, like, dude, no offense, like read The Room. Like the fucking world's ending. Like why would you build a factory now? But like he like totally had foresight. He's like, no, fuck that. This is how I'm going to build a community.
We were talking about that on Twitter the other day.
Yeah.
I started going down the Warhol Diaries. They're on
amazing.
Netflix. Basically, Andy's public, like he wrote a diary, it became public. And then there's a short mini series on like different sections of the diary.
Fantastic.
And they took a fucking AI voice and recreated his voice. So it sounds like he's talking. It's actually like not creepy, but insanely cool.
It's one of the best documentaries I've seen. And in this space, it's like it should be required for everybody to watch.
It makes you zoom out and think about like what this space might look like in 20 years.
Yeah.
Like I started thinking like, what would Andy Warhol look like if he was, you know, I don't want to compare him and Fiwo, but like I just kept thinking like, what if you put Andy Warhol on the internet at like the young age and how differently that would have turned out? And then like, imagine Fiwo like grinding in New York until he's like 30, 35, slowly building up this like snowball of, I don't want to say like misfits, but like people who didn't necessarily felt like they fit in outside of the factory. And then seeing that turn into this massive snowball that like kind of just pushes culture in another direction.
He did it like with no internet.
Yeah, that was like blowing my mind that he did it with no internet.
So now we're kind of like all of what we are now in like Web3 and stuff is like a giant factory, right?
Yeah.
Because like we're all like able to do and that came from him, you know? Like it is, I wonder like also like what Andy Warhol, if he was alive right now, like what would he look like NFTs like at? And you know, I'm not an art historian. My wife actually has her master's in art history and I talked to her a lot about this. You know, she said someone like him and Dolly, they would be fucking like eating this shit up like for breakfast. Like it would be so, cause like that was their whole thing, you know, reaching out and sort of like community based and getting other artists involved. And, you know, so I think you're right. Like someone like Fiwo is, I think.
I look at his paint parties. I look at his world building and what he's doing. I look at the fact that he's 19 and I'm just like, what does this look like in 10 years?
Right.
And like you said, like with the paint, like it's like, I gotta be involved.
No, I have to.
I gotta see all this.
I have zero clue what it is. I said, like, I was talking to Sam Spratt and I told him I bought it. And, you know, Sam to me is actually one of the most premier artists in the space.
His work's insane.
And his work is insane. He's an absolutely like the most gentle, kindest human being. He's so smart and so insightful. He actually, you know, he actually got Fiwo to do his first NFT.
Oh, really?
Most people don't know that.
Nice.
Yeah. I think Fiwo like reached out to him and they became friends, and and then Sam kind of just waited to do his own thing. But going back, sorry, I was saying to Sam Spratt, I said like, oh, I bought the paint drop, and I said to him like, I have no idea what it does. I have zero clue, but I'm like, I feel like I'm making an investment in a company. Like I'm just going to hold on to it. Like I don't even care what it does right now. This whole idea of utility, it'll come.
Yeah.
So, it's going to be there one day. So
yeah, I think what you said about like kind of being a bit of a art, like a renaissance for art, I think it's a really good point. And like I've been thinking about it since you said it as we've been talking. And I do think that there's like, we're in this really interesting time with NFTs and crypto where like never before artists have had access to this like liquid market of people who are more than happy to support them and go to the seaport and clap for their work. And also like maybe there's a buyer in Dubai who couldn't make it, but like they can just buy the same shit on OpenSea that anyone else can. And so I do think we're going to like continue to see more and more people just like who are actually now empowered to support artists and also empowered to create work where it can be like a feasible way to buy things, like to sustain your life and do all of that that we've literally never seen before.
Yeah, I mean, you're creating a microeconomy for artists. So like the idea of like a starving artist doesn't have to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody came to their parents and said like, I want to be an artist. Be like, how are you going to make a living?
Yeah.
Well, we're creating that.
Well, it's like right now, like so many kids want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Like I want to see those kids like want to be artists.
Right.
Like would you rather your kid, like kids growing up now, they see the YouTube generation, they see the Mr. Beast and stuff. Like I want to be that. Or maybe like the kids growing up that are like your kids maybe. Yeah. They see the NFT generation. They're like, no, I want to be an artist. Like I want to create.
I want them to see people like Amani and Defaced and Fiwo, all these young artists. Like, I mean, some of them are like Defaced also is like 20 years old,
Yeah.
And they see these bright futures. Like I want, my kids to be like, okay, I could do that too, and there's you don't even have to be an artist. There's business in here. Like there's other things that we could do, there's a study that came out like in, 3 years ago, whatever it was, like pre-COVID, that like 51% of the jobs that exist right now in the world could be automated tomorrow. Like it's fucking mind blowing, right? Like I don't think people even understand that, right? Like with automation.
Yeah.
Because like we're teaching our kids
to do jobs that they won't be jobs.
They won't be jobs. Like we're teaching them things to be jobs. Like we have to find other things to teach them. Like, but this space is that. Like you can be an artist. So like we could teach you how to be an artist. We could give you more dynamics. I think that's what's so beautiful about the blockchain. So like, what are we going to do? We're going to have all these people that just can't get jobs in the future. Forget like truck drivers all of a sudden one day are going to be like, oh, by the way, we automated all trucks.
Yeah, sorry guys.
Real
bummer for you.
Yeah,
learn to code. And you're like, oh shit. Oh, they're not gonna learn to code.
Right. Like go learn to code. Like some like 40-year-old guys like, dude, listen.
I don't have the neuroplasticity for this.
I smoke 5 packs a day. I don't know anything about coding. Like but that's the future. Like we could try and pretend like it's not coming.
But it is.
Dude, I watch my kids, man. They're like the swipe generation. Like, they're like born
to swipe.
Like they're born like to understand. Like I get that it's because we give them tech at a young age, but the more tech we have, the more they're going to be inclined. I know this makes probably no sense. So somebody who's going to listen to this, who's like a scientist, is going to say I'm wrong, but here's my theory anyways.
I love it.
I'm feeling what you gave me this morning a little bit. Bees can't really fly, right? You know that. So they don't, their wings don't have enough lift to actually make them fly scientifically, I believe.
Okay, that's news
you look
to
it up.
me.
You look it up on the internet.
Yeah, I believe it.
Something like that. So like I think it's like basically like they watch other bees fly, so they fly, right? So like my whole theory is like that with kids and tech, right? So like they're just gonna like start watching like they'll just like see like augmented reality, and we'll see it as technology. They'll just see it as life, like it's just part of them.
Yeah,
right. Like they'll see a robot come in and put them to sleep, and they're gonna be like, okay. Like we don't see it that way.
I can see that through my siblings right now, a little bit. Like I have a 14-year-old brother, And like he, in my head, thinks of like digital goods, like not like the separation of digital and physical, but like they're just goods. It's like
they're goods.
It's like my V-Bucks are dollars.
Yeah.
Like my skins are real.
They see it,
even though like it's clearly digital, it's not real. But like to them, it's
real.
Yeah.
So like when we have conversations with people who are not even in our generation, they're like, I don't understand how that's an actual. It's not physical to them, so it's an asset. But but our kids totally understand that. So I'm like, we're betting on that future, right?
Yeah.
Because we know
the world's only going to get more digital.
Well, it's like
100%.
I even think about like comparing that to just like the internet existing for me, where it's always existed at my like since I've been cognizant, basically.
Right.
And like I don't think about the internet as like some piece of technology that I use. It is like a core primitive of my life, and I'm sure my parents do not feel that way.
No.
Yeah.
For sure not. Like to them, like. I remember my dad when I had to like teach him how to do it, an email. Like, he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" But that's going to happen more and more. Like, that's why I love sci-fi movies. But that like sort of just feeling of like things happening. Like, listen, I also think that if we put a baby in a room with people flying, just like the bees, then people will fly. That's like my other theory, like the bees, because it's like mind over matter. But I do think like we're going into this new sort of world that like we kind of understand, but like we don't fully understand, but like at least we're there.
Yeah.
But it's funny because our children will understand it more. I mean, you'll see when you have kids. It's like, here's like a crazy thing. You both don't have kids yet, right? So hopefully you will.
Hopefully soon.
Your kids might not have a license.
Yeah.
Like that's fucking crazy. They might not drive a car. Think about that.
Yeah.
Like my kids might not drive a car. My oldest is 7. There's a possibility in 10 years she might really not drive, or she might have the choice
not to.
But my youngest might be like, nah, we're just getting rid of people driving.
Yeah. It's
safer to have robots, right? And that's like a fucking crazy sort of like if you think about that, and I'm not there's people who are way smarter who theorize about this stuff and talk about stuff on TED Talks and shit that I listen to, and like, but it hits me. I'm just like, wow, like especially teaching in a school and watching these kids, I'm just like, dude, we have no idea what's coming.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit more. I feel like it's a good transition point.
Yeah. Okay.
So you, as your full-time job, working in school, tell us a bit more about that.
So I got into education, I don't know, like years ago. My mom, I got married young. I was trying to figure out what I want to do. I always wanted to like make movies and stuff. I was never really, I always wanted to be an artist, but I was not artistic or a writer, so I never had those skills, but I always loved that stuff. So I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And my mom's like, oh, why don't you be a teacher? My mom was a teacher, and I'm like, I'm not doing that shit, like whatever. I did I had all these odds and end jobs for a while. Like I was driving a car for some, I don't know, weird guy. Told me to pick up money at his dad's house and drop off money in Brooklyn. Paid me in cash. I drove my little like Toyota Corolla that like had like the worst seats in the world, and like he's like, I'm like, why don't we drive your car? And he's like, no, we can't drive my car. It's always in the shop. It was like a whole weird situation, but whatever. Like I had like these weird jobs, and my wife was very supportive, and I was just trying to figure it out. So I went to visit my mom and did some hours there, and I kind of liked it. I found that there was creativity that I could do within education. I finished my degree. I went to get my master's. It wasn't called STEM then. It was like education technology, sort of like / library science, like whatever. And then I started working, and I really liked it a lot. And then I got my first job. Then I started doing consulting. And about 9 years ago, I was doing consulting. I was very big into like STEM education. And I really wanted to start pushing STEM education out. So like I essentially just had this very strong visceral feeling of like everything we're talking about, like we need to like teach kids to code and engineer. And I didn't really fully understand it yet, but this school hired me after doing consulting for that. And I built this program up, and it just kind of became my passion. Like I really enjoyed it. I really loved the community that I was in. It was like I just felt like I was building something. I still do. Like I would never give it up. Like, you know, there's times in the school's like, oh, why didn't you move on? Like I got like job offers and I'm like, it's just not. It's not about the money. Like I want to be here. You know, I love this. And so basically I built a STEM program nursery through 12th grade. And like we start teaching, you know, coding at 4 years old in my school.
That's really cool.
And, you know, now I've been there for almost 9 years. And some of the kids who are graduating going to engineering school that I taught STEM like a long time ago, it's like, holy shit. Like
I know one in NFTs.
Right.
That's
Exactly.
crazy. Like one of your old students.
Yeah. Like
it's in NFTs, like joining the Twitter space. It's crazy.
yeah, it's really, it's like one of those students actually, funny enough, you know, he's sometimes on the GM show with you guys, Brian.
Yeah.
So he was like a student in my school.
That's
One
so
time
cool.
I'm listening
He
to
has
the
cats and Azuki.
Yeah.
And
I was like listening to GM show. I'm like, wait a minute, is that like Brian? He's like, yeah. I DM'd him. He's like, yeah. I was like, by the way, it's Benny. He's like, wait, what? You know? And he's such a great kid and he's doing super well. But like, you know, I just feel like STEM was so important. And then what happened was I just got very involved with the school so much that it kind of became like my life in a lot of ways. I do all the fundraising for them and I work with like everybody there. I have like one more class and finish my PhD in education.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
And everybody call me doctor, which would be
Dr.
weird.
Benny.
Dr. Benny. Dr. Redbeard. And
PhD.
But it's, to me, like I feel like I'm actually making a difference. I'm shaping things. And I feel that the world is totally kind of fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've been watching for years, you know, and it seems like everybody's solution is always like, let's fix the problem top down. And that just never works. So like, I have this belief that we have to do it from the bottom up. You know, we start with kids, like kids in my school, I was saying this to Micah Johnson, kids in inner cities, you know, give them the skills they have now. So like 10 years from now, the problem's fixed. You can't just throw money at something and just say, oh, the public school system's fixed or we're going to fix this. It just doesn't work. You know, and I know that sucks because it's like, oh, we have to wait 10 years. Like, yeah, like, you know, but let's
it's an
try.
investment. Yeah.
That's an investment, right? Like, let's fix the problem now. So like in 2018, my school had a fire. So like I was telling you guys, and that really kind of really got me connected to the school a lot. I like helped rebuild it. I was in charge of construction and stuff. It was really crazy. I was like there that night. I got the call that there was a fire and I didn't see anything. And next thing I knew, there was like just smoke everywhere. Fire just came in. It was pretty. I didn't really talk about it much, but it was pretty jarring. It was
Yeah.
like,
That's scary.
Yeah, it hit me hard, and like I still think that like I'm glad that, you know, I was very proud of like what we did to rebuild it and stuff, but it kind of like just really made me feel super connected to what we were doing. You know, it's just something I just never give up. Like, you know, when people are like, oh, you do crypto, quit your day job. I'm always like, don't quit your day job. Like, you know, find something you like and just do both. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
that's the thing, you know, unless like you can't get a full-time crypto job. But I really feel like I have young kids. They're in the school. And I'm not like, you know, I don't like talk about it publicly, but like if someone asks me or like, I'm not like embarrassed, like, you know, I'm not hiding anything. You know, people found my LinkedIn page on Twitter and they're like hitting me up on Twitter. Like, yo, is this Redbeard? I'm like, yeah. They're like, wait, what? Like, you know, like I won an award for like, you know, locally for like teacher of the year and stuff. And like,
that's awesome.
I'm like, I just feel really strongly. Like, it's just like, it kind of grounds me a lot. And I actually think we can marry what we're doing in our space and in education.
Yeah.
And I think if we could find that path, like I think we could really blow shit up, you know, like I really feel strongly about that. But
I'm sure you've thought about that a lot more than we have. Do you have any little things you've ever thought of like, oh, I think this would be a really interesting thing to try?
So I taught this year a little bit of an NFT class to my seniors. Like I was just telling Eric Snowfall last night, I was like, I actually taught a lesson about you You know, like
about Eric.
Yeah, about like it's like he's like, what? I'm like, I mean, dude, like
you're a legend.
Yeah, I mean, like, well, that's also the other thing. Like, I was sitting there last night. I'm with like Dave Krugman. I tweeted out this morning, like Dave Krugman and Snowfro, and I really truly believe this. Like, I say this to them, and I know that they don't listen, but like, I'm gonna tell my grandkids one day, like, you know, they're gonna be watching a documentary on like the art renaissance of like the digital art renaissance, and like, I'm gonna say, yeah, I was at that dinner, and my grandkids gonna be like, yeah, bullshit. Like, I don't believe you. Like, because that's what I feel like we're going.
And then
through.
you get to say, no, check the chain.
Check the chain, right?
Look at my
exactly.
POAP.
Yeah. Look at my POAP. Like, yeah. Like, you know, they're gonna be like, nah, you don't. Like, no, they're friends of mine. Like, nah, you know, grandpa, you're fucking nuts. Like, you know, but that's how I feel. So, I feel that if we could take those people and get them involved with the education of children, like, I'm not asking them to be the teachers, but like, somehow, you know, get them to give that information over to them at a young age, I think that we could change a lot of lives. I really do. And I think that it's not just about teaching them how to code. It's about how they could look at the world very differently. You know, like, I have to say, like, you know, there's definitely issues that we've had in drama with in NFT space with, like, you know, hate speech and whatnot. But overall, like, dude, I haven't read the news in like a year. I have no idea what's going on because, like, everybody I talk to, we're not talking about this, and I don't care. It doesn't, like, I've had conversations with people who are like from other countries, other races. Like, it doesn't even like register in my brain, and I think that this is how we can like kind of build to that future. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point about. I feel like younger people, and we've already talked about this a bit, it's so much easier to explain to them why we're excited about these things. Like, even just, I have younger siblings who are in like their early 20s, and even like talking to them is like, yeah, you can buy NFTs of the music artists that you like and support them. And they're like, that's really cool. I would like to do that. And I think that being able to explain to them why the stuff that we're all so passionate about is exciting and like why we are passionate about it, I have a feeling they would be way more like responsive and receptive to that than because, some random person.
Well, they're digital natives. Yeah. Right? You know, and like my daughter's 7 years old. She buys Roblox. Yeah. Like, she thinks she owns her fucking shirt that she bought on Roblox. I'm like, you don't own it. She's like, what do you mean I don't own it? I remember the first time I taught the NFT class to my students in school. And I said, you know, who here's on TikTok? They all raise their hand or whatever. I'm like, who owns your videos that you put on TikTok? And, you know, they're like, oh, well, I own them. It's like, no, you don't. And they're like,
what do you mean? I didn't read the terms and conditions.
Yeah, they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, how about your emails? They're like, oh, I own my emails. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, you know,
Google owns your
emails. And they're like, what are you talking about? And then, like, they came back the next class and they asked their parents, and they were like blown away. Like, wait, I don't know anything.
I don't know anything.
Like, yeah, because your digital footprint is not owned by you. Like, which is what our, like, but as digital native people, they want to have ownership, like you said. Yeah. So it's like ingrained in their head already that they have ownership, even though they don't. You know, so like, I think that's like the aha moment, you know, that's going to happen. Yeah. So like my daughter with her shirt, like she bought this dress, and I said to her, I was just like trying to see. I was like, by the way, you don't really own that dress. You only own that dress on Roblox. Like, you can't take it to another game, you know. And she was just like, no, it's mine. Like, I mean, she's not listening to me. She never listens to me anymore. Yeah. So that's my, you know, education to me is like everything. Yeah. You know, and I think that we've been teaching schools the same way for fucking hundreds of years.
Yeah, and we've evolved so much.
And I feel like I've had, like, you know, thinking about this a little more, like growing up, I felt like I didn't have agency. Like, I didn't feel like I had control over anything that could happen to me. Like, I felt like I would spend my whole life in the Midwest, no one would know who I was, and I would die. Yeah. And that would be it. And like, in school, they didn't teach us like how to live online and break out of the small town in Ohio and just make friends with the world. And it was like this revelation, like, oh wow, like I can choose, like, and actually have an impact on things that happen in the world. I'm not just like a NPC bystander soaking up information
just
from the teacher.
Having a huge math book and history book and like these fucking books that were like 10,000 pounds. Like,
but you don't think like at the time when you have that book that like you don't think about the authors and like who wrote it. You just think like this is fact,
right? You didn't question anything.
No,
but that's the educational system. They didn't want you to question anything.
Yeah,
like they wanted you just to do exactly what they wanted you to do.
It prepares you horribly for the world.
And they also don't like in any way encourage you to like dream big or have like a grandiose idea. Like,
oh, you want to be a football player? Good luck, kid.
Yeah.
Right. And if you were lucky enough to be a football player, it's like, okay, now you should only focus on football.
Yeah.
Forget the fact that when you're done with football, you have nothing else in your fucking life because we're not educating you.
Yeah. Well, and just think about like, I was really, really fortunate. In 7th grade, I like had one class I like opted into that was a programming class, and I did that, and I was like, "Holy fuck, this is so cool! Like, this is like I want to do this."
Right.
And it was like very easy for me. I was really lucky.
But you got lucky.
Yeah, I got so lucky. I just picked a random. I had no idea what I was doing. I just picked a random class and got lucky.
Right.
But like the fact that school systems, so like I feel like they have these classes that really aren't that important. That are, oh, you better get an A on your English paper about some book that doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Whereas like no one cares about art classes and music classes or
finance
classes or finance classes. Yeah, those are all like secondary things, but you better know who won the Battle of Gettysburg or whatever. Like,
or you'll learn that later in life. Like that's always your answer. And like I'm not saying history is not important. I think history is uber important.
Yeah.
Even though the problem is history is written by winners, which is always a problem. But like literature, reading these books, right? It's like, okay, I want you to read the book and then I want you to like write a paper on it. I never understood that. Like, I don't want to fucking write a paper.
Yeah.
Like, it like just took away everything about the book. And some of these books are fascinating and amazing. Like, I remember, in 6th grade, my teacher made us read Gone with the Wind. It was fucking like 10,000 pages. Like, I don't know what the hell is going on. I read like every night, like one page for like 10 years, whatever it was. And my mom like worked with me on it. But when I finished it, I remember like, oh my God, I'm not a huge reader now. I listen more to podcasts. I do read. Like, I was very big into comics. I was still big into comics and stuff like that. But just my point is like the whole system just is like totally disjointed. It doesn't. It's like they're preparing you for nothing in the future, and it just never changed. And now they're trying to change it, but it's like now it's it's very political. Yeah. So it's like, oh well, what are we teaching them? And it's not how.
Way too political.
Right. It's like way too political. It's not like how are we teaching. It's more like what are we teaching them and what can't we teach them? And let's take this out and let's take this, add this in. Instead of people stopping and being like, okay, why don't we teach them what matters? Or like preparation for themselves to be successful. And I just like, that's what I try to focus on. Like we have like STEM labs in our school. We have like 3D printers, CNC routers, laser cutters. And I remember the first time I got a 3D printer in my school, everybody's like, I don't know, what the hell are you doing? And there's this one donor, I was just like, you got to trust me. And he's like, I love the idea. And he was a really good guy and he trusted me. We got one and the kids were just like building. And I remember there was one kid, he wouldn't speak. He would talk, but he would only talk in, what are those little yellow guys from the movie?
The Minions?
Minions. He would talk in Minion to everybody, right? And this was like one of my best moments ever. He was, I think it was like in 3rd grade at the time, I don't remember. He was using the 3D printer and I was doing it with him. And I think he talked to some people normally, just most people he wouldn't. And I asked him a question, he answered me. And then I went to go back to the printer and then I realized that he answered me,
Not Minion.
Right. And it was just because like I just gave him something he enjoyed. Mm-hmm. That was it.
Yeah.
He was fascinated by it. He graduated high school. I was just like, wow. Like, I remember when he graduated, I was like, this is fucking crazy. Like, that's what it is. It's like, we have to like give them what makes them tick instead of what makes us tick as adults. And I think that's where we sort of totally missed the mark, So I think that's where NFTs could really come into place because I think there's a lot that we do here that could make that difference. Mm-hmm. I wish there was almost like an educational NFT fund, where we could like just sit in a room and like brainstorm how we bring these amazing projects. So some of these projects I think are going to last forever, you know, Fivo, Squiggles, Aku, Friends, whatever, you know, I just think that there's so much potential for them in the future that we could just kind of like all, you know, like, okay, how are we going to make a difference?
I think like having exposure as a kid to different experiences is super important. It's something my dad focused, I think, pretty hard on with me. Like he made me try every sport, made me, you know, try every outdoor thing, whether it was shooting, kayaking, hiking, whatever. Just like trying to get me to find like something I liked. And like I was the kid who like I would do that to appease him and then run home and pull out my laptop.
Right.
Like he didn't have that connection to the experience that I did, so he didn't see it that way. But like he did try to get me like exposed to everything. And it made me think like, okay, like for my kid, even if I don't love fishing, hunting, whatever, like I should still try to do those things a little bit so they get exposure to it. And if they love it, then they know it. And they're not just like, I put them in a silo.
Dude, I took my kids, last summer to
there you go.
Yeah, I'm trying to cough. I took my kids last summer to upstate New York for like 4 days, like 5 days, whatever. And we rented a house on the lake. I said to my wife, I'm like, we just need to get out. They had there's no iPads except at night, you know, but during the day, like we hiked, we went on the water. Like, dude, they had the fucking best time of their lives. And I went fishing with them. We caught nothing and they're still like, let's go fishing again, you know? But I do think that there's an interesting dynamic that my dad, our parents, they, with technology for some reason had a barrier, right? But we won't have as much barrier with our kids. We won't understand everything they're doing. Like we might not understand their TikTok videos, but we'll understand fundamentally what they're doing. So like I play video games with my daughters, right? A lot. And that's a connection I can make with them. Now, so I do think that there's going to be this interesting sort of like generation XYZ connecting to the swipe generation that we haven't seen in the past. Could create a lot of growth in the future, because like we just fundamentally understand, like, you know, I played Halo like nonstop in college. I remember one time in college, my friend found their old Nintendo. Okay, like the original. He brought it to the dorm. And we had Mario's 1, 2, and 3. The cartridges fucking blowing in and shit like that. We made a deal that what we were going to do is we were going to play all 3 continuously. And if we lost all our lives at any point in any game, we had to start from the beginning. So we stayed up for like, this is college, so we were stupid, but we stayed up for like 36 hours straight. And we finally did it. And the Nintendo basically blew up because it was like on too long. It was on too long. And but like that's what I'm saying. Like we just kind of understand that like sort of like digital world. Like I think we're natives also. Yeah. We're not as native as them. Like they're kind of like it's like ingrained in them a little bit more than us. But like our parents just never had that.
Oh yeah, I mean I would do that in RuneScape. You know, grinding for experience. You would try to set certain milestones. I had 1 week where I spent like 85 or 90 hours training the same skill. And it was just like every day I know what I'm doing from when I wake up till I go to bed. It was like, why did I do that? It was like to prove to myself I could.
I'm telling you, like when I got on Xbox, I got what's wrong with me? That game, Oblivion.
Yeah. Classic.
You know, it almost destroyed my marriage. Like I remember I was on for like I don't know how many hours. I was playing with my friends and whatnot. I mean, I started playing with my friends. I was on my phone with my friends. I don't think you could play together at that point.
No, but you had to talk about it with your friends. Like, you're like, I'm doing this shit over here.
Yeah. I started again. Listen, I remember my wife one time came to me and she like stood in front of the TV and she's like, okay, enough, you know? And I was like, I didn't even realize what was going on. I was playing every night for like 5 hours straight. So one night I was playing. It was really late. I was eating a Caesar salad. It was 3 a.m. And then all of a sudden, I had this pain in my back. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I start walking around my apartment. I wake up my wife. She's like, leave me alone. And then like 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm like, listen, I think there's something really wrong. So, of course, I wasn't working at the time. My wife was, right? That was a bum. And she's like, she called me a cab, sent me to the emergency room. I get there. I fainted on the floor. Oh. Turns out I had a kidney stone.
Oh shit.
And the doctor's like, what have you been doing lately? So I was like, well, I've been on the couch playing video games, drinking soda, eating Caesar salads, and he's like, well, he's like, that would do it, like, and I realized I'm like, okay, I gotta figure some shit out, like,
You're like, maybe
it's a little less video games than Caesar salad.
I feel like a lot of my friends also had very similar things. I remember. I distinctly remember I was playing a lot of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 game battles.
Yeah.
And it was me and my cousin and these 2 kids from my high school. And we'd play 4-on-4 game battles just all the time. And I remember one day my parents coming to my room and basically wanting to have a sit down, Andy, we think you're playing too many video games. We're worried about what you're doing with your life. And I was just like, you guys don't get it.
You don't understand.
Yeah. I need to rank up in game battles. You don't understand
different.
The leaderboard.
My parents are divorced. I spent most of my time with my single mom. My dad was much like your parents. I had to get my ass outside if the sun was out. And I couldn't play games until I got back home. But I only was at my dad's place every other weekend. And I was at my mom's the other 11 out of the 14 days. And my mom is also more of a laid back addict, degenerate type, where she would spend 12 hours playing fake slots on a computer. So she understood.
Yeah.
And I never had any of those sit downs. It was I'd go in my room, shut the door, 8 hours of GBs. We're doing 3v3, 4v4, GBS&D or MLG variant only. And I'm just cursing like a sailor from the age of 13 to 18. And then it took me till college to back. I'm oh, that probably wasn't normal that I was allowed to just sit there and play and do whatever I wanted for 8+ hours every day.
For sure not.
But it created this mindset that really lets me succeed in this space.
Yeah. You learned you probably got more learning experiences from that than you did in school.
Yeah,
it was all.
I say that a lot. I feel like gaming, people learn so much about how to work with people,
teamwork,
how to get through challenges, how to get better at things.
So I tried to convince my school that we needed an e-gaming program. So we need to build a new auditorium. Our auditorium is really old. And I said, okay, I want to build an esports arena. I'm out of your mind. I come up with ideas, and the board's always
here we go.
They look at me oh,
here we go.
Benny has this crazy idea. So I'm like, no, trust me on this. So I started an esports team this year, and we had 10 kids on it or something. One of the kids was so good. We were number 2 in the tri-state area. We killed it.
Wow.
One of the kids is probably gonna get a full scholarship to college.
What games are they playing?
Just Rocket League right now.
Okay, Rocket League is really fun.
Yeah.
Rocket League's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Horrible.
Yeah, I can't. Bad. So these kids are amazing. This one kid's I think he has an agent now. This year, it's crazy. And then the school's okay, well, this is pretty especially getting full ride to college. I'm okay, so I raise money and and now they're building an auditorium / esports arena because they're you know what? They're you know what? Let's do it. Because to me, I'm this is a future. There's e-gaming is the fastest growing sport. It's it's a huge amount of money, and there's other things about just playing, the business side to it. We taught all these kids this different stuff, and so all these people playing video games all these years, there's a lot of skills.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know how much easier it'll be to convince a kid to learn about finances and all that when you're talking about it under the guise of hey, if you were to run a Rocket League esports team and you have a budget of this much money and X, Y, and Z, they'd be a million times more excited about it than to talk about the hardware store that they could have or something.
Or how about the fact that we can't all fucking be athletes.
Yeah.
I was the worst fucking athlete in the world, I wish somebody taught me robotics when I was a kid because I probably would have been yeah, I could do that.
Yeah.
I had the same feeling. My dad was exposing me to all the physical things.
Right.
I'm wow, I'm shit at golf. Wow, I'm shit at basketball, bad at football.
Right. I mean, I enjoy playing. I was really good, for one play, to run fast, and then I was okay, my asthma's back. But otherwise, e-gaming, for instance, puts everybody on an even playing field.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter anything. It's okay, we're all even here. It doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are. It's that,
I think that we're going to – I mean, I'm very, very bullish on esports and all that in general. To me – having an esports team now is the same as having a football team in the 1940s or something.
I'm telling they just bought a soccer team and everybody's buying these other teams. I'm why are we not as an NFT group buying an esports team?
This is where I shill nouns. That's right. I say Noun's Esports.
Yeah, Noun's actually
Really?
I'm not sure. Did they sponsor? I think they sponsor.
So they have a sponsorship with the Dota 2 team.
Okay.
Yeah, like
It
a good
is
Dota.
very good.
Yeah.
That's
they
awesome.
just played their first team tournament as Team Noums or just Noums, and I watched it. Like I don't fully understand Dota. It's a lot like League, but to me it's a little more confusing. The graphics aren't as clear, and the gameplay there's like a lot more optionality.
Yeah.
And like the characters just do crazier shit. But I can still like watch it and appreciate it because it does kind
It's
of
fun
feel
to
like
watch.
League.
I kind of love watching.
And like I felt so good watching them win. Like it felt better
That's awesome.
than rooting
I
for
didn't know
like
that.
Cloud9 is my like favorite traditional
mine,
esports
mine
team.
as well.
And like, you know, growing up, I liked them for their League of Legends players. I loved Meteos. I loved Sneaky. I loved Balls. I loved Ty. Like that was my team. And the feeling of rooting for Noums in a game I don't even care about felt stronger than rooting for C9.
Yeah.
Like as a Noums holder.
Yeah.
And like all I can think about with the esports arena you're talking about, I was like, fuck, we can get some proposals up. Like that's not that much ETH.
Right.
No, but like
now it's a lot more.
no,
Well,
but
yeah.
honestly, stuff like that. To show Nouns a little bit more, like what I think is sick about it is I really think if you were to say, hey, we have this, you know, school, we have an esports league, we'd love to throw a Noun sponsored tournament and get a bunch of kids from the school, like Nouns would say yes.
Like
And that's what's so cool about
I
it.
would love to do that.
Like the Noums.
We should like actually talk about that off air. I think
I'm gonna start. We're building up the teams now.
Yeah.
We're gonna do middle school next year and even maybe lower school. But like to me, like that's fucking awesome. I didn't know that about nouns. I don't have a noun yet. We keep talking about getting one, but you know everything's like liquidity and this.
Yeah.
It's always hard like during these times like to sell or take out from your reserves. Like you have to be really careful. But we have like a bunch of little nouns.
I was very
that was
lucky.
like really happy to get those. So
All my ETH is really high cost basis from selling NFTs.
Right.
So it was like, all right, I'm buying it now.
Right.
And like
That was
taking a
smart.
loss.
yeah, but you were that was a good move for you, I think.
Yeah.
But
if I had like ETH from $80 that I was selling for like long-term cap gains to buy it now, that would feel a lot worse.
a lot worse. Yeah.
One of the things I'm excited about too, about the esports stuff, just before we lose that, is like the biggest esport tournaments we see right now have like a $10 million prize pool, a $5 million prize pool. If we had a crypto native League of Legends tournament, it would blow those out of the water. Like it wouldn't even be close.
It wouldn't even be. It would be like it's so there's so much potential there.
Yeah.
Right. Like I don't know why we like kind of miss e-gaming.
I think there's a lot of I don't want to say misinformation, but like misconceptions amongst like gamers and NFT people. I feel like for people like Andy and I, we're on the inside NFTs, we feel it like very closely, like this is connected. But a lot of gamers, I feel like, look at NFTs and they're like, it's destroying the environment. Like,
so I had one friend who made a really good point about this that I like. He's crypto aware. I talked to him a lot. He's a good friend from college, so like I shill crypto to him all the time. But he's also a really big gamer, and his like biggest concern with gaming and NFTs is like the stuff you hear about with NFTs is that everything's really expensive and it's all about how numbers going up. And he's like, so much of gaming is like pay to win, microtransactions, and he's like, the worst thing that could happen is you merge really expensive NFTs and I have to pay to win in microtransactions. He's like, I just don't want to have to pay $10,000 to play the game that I want. And so I do think there's definitely a lot of misconceptions as well around like the environment and all that stuff, but there's also, I think, this fear of I don't want this thing that's fun for me to be even more financialized and require me to pull out my credit card every time I want to play.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you should have on one time. Ben Marrow, he does Huxley. Yeah. So like he was very involved in Halo and he talks about this all the time. He's like that misconception. He's like, and that's what he's trying to marry now. And like we supported him. Like
I have a couple of the comics.
Yeah, so we bought at least one of every comic, but we even beforehand he had something on Flow that we bought everything of because like I really like vibed with like what he was talking about. He sees that like dynamic like sort of building together, and like Halo, for instance, like, dude, I remember playing Halo 2. I mean, that was like that, and like the two shooting games that I feel like I loved to play the most was Halo and GoldenEye. Like college, I played so much fucking GoldenEye, Golden Gun. I don't know if you guys played it. Like it was like literally the best. It was like it started everything. Yeah. Then when Halo 2 came out, I mean, I was not as good. Like I had a friend who was like fucking amazing, and we would just be on a team together. He would like it was like basically my job. I never shot anybody. I just used sticky bombs. Like I was just running around. He would like keep them distracted. I'd like put sticky bombs on people. Like that's all I did. But talking to Ben about Halo, like, you know, he talks a lot about that, like, you know, this idea of like, you know, building video games and whatnot. He's like, it's not as easy as everybody thinks it is. You know, it's like you can't just raise $20 million and say, okay, I'm going to build a video game now. You know, he's like, it costs $200 million, you know, and it takes years, you know.
And the hit rate's not that high, even with $200 million.
Yeah. Like
how many games in your life have you actually loved?
I've loved, I would say like, if I can name like my top, there's like, it's a good point. So like I played a lot of games that I loved. Some games like I loved, right? Resident Evil 4. I could fucking play that like 10 million times. Zelda. Like I'm like a huge Zelda fan, especially the last one. Like it just blew me away. I love
the Bioshock.
Yeah. Like I could go play Bioshock 1, 2, or 3 like any day of the week. I'm just like, it was shocking to me.
I find like I might be in the minority here, but as like a hyper competitive person, I never enjoyed like Oblivion or Bioshock or Zelda. If I couldn't play and measure my skill against somebody else online,
right,
I had no interest in the game.
Right.
So like for me, when I think about games, there's probably like less than 6 games that like I actually felt like I loved my whole life, and then like I compared to like movies where I feel like there's like 100 movies and TV shows I love, and like for games it's like all these people building games. I'm like, man, like I don't even feel like I'll like it even if it's good, and I feel bad because it's like if it's not competitive, I won't play it. Like my brain is wired so that if I can't measure like my output.
So why do you feel you're so competitive? It's just like
I don't know. I've been like this my whole life. I think growing up, I was very frustrated because my dad put me in a lot of physical sports, and I was very competitive but bad. And then once I found gaming, it was like, oh, I'm like competitive in this and actually good. And then it was like, okay, I can't play things for like fun. I need to like get better.
Do you feel like you carry that into like collecting NFTs and
like trading? Yeah. That like competitive urge.
You still feel it?
Yeah. It's just like imagine if we played a board game, like I'd probably get pissed if I lost.
Yeah.
Like that's just like
I'm pretty similar in a lot of ways.
How my brain works.
I definitely still enjoy a lot of story-driven like video gaming. Like some of my favorite games are Fire Emblem, Pokemon.
Pokemon might
Bioshock.
be like the one exception for me.
Yeah, but like I have a very hard time going back to those games. Like once I think I enjoy it for the story. To me, playing Bioshock is like watching a really long movie almost.
Yeah,
more so than playing the game itself.
Yeah,
but the games that I put hours and hours and hours into are more so like Hearthstone, League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, these games where I can go and play ranked.
Yes, Call of Duty, Halo, Gears of War.
Like I play those games a lot. I'm not good at those. So maybe that's the difference. But I enjoy playing them. It's like I feel like I compare them to golf.
Oh yeah.
It's like I'm terrible at golf.
I'm very bad at golf.
But there's people who like all they want to do is get better at golf.
Yeah.
And they're never even as good as they're going to be, but they take these fucking lessons, you know, like and I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, I love playing, but I'm like, I'm never taking a lesson. I'm never getting better. Like I'm never going to have a handicap or whatever the fuck it is. Like it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So like, I guess like when I play the shooting games, I'm just like, all right, if I die, I don't know.
Well, I can tell by how you phrased like the sticky grenades.
Yeah. Like, I enjoyed playing hours and hours of just sticking grenades, you know. My friend Dizzle, he was like, yeah, just stick a grenade there. I'm like, okay, you know, like but I enjoyed that.
Like I'm thinking about like where people are respawning. I'm thinking about my reticles resting, making sure it's on people's heads. Like I'm in range to like BXR as soon as I'm around in the corner.
I never thought about those things, but I guess like that to me, I just enjoyed being part of the community. So I was like, yeah, I'm here. I'm having fun, you know, meeting people. I'm with my friends. Like I guess that's the same way I feel about crypto now. You know, like I don't need my Twitter count to be high. I don't need to show off how much money. I mean, I just don't really care. I'm just like, hey, I'm part of what's going to happen. So like,
I feel like as I've gotten older, I've gotten much better about being competitive at least.
Yeah.
To where, like when I was a kid, I used to go golfing with my dad, and I would cry when I would play that because I'd get so upset.
Right.
Like I'd be standing in the middle of the fairway about to swing a 3-wood crying because I was so mad that I had done poorly on the previous hole. But I feel like I've gotten to a point now, at least, where I generally will take something or something I know I'm good at and basically use that to kind of be an outlet for my competitive like nature. And so for me, it's a game called Teamfight Tactics and I'm really good at it. And I really enjoy playing it and it's really fun, but that's like the thing I do to be competitive. And then when I'm playing PUBG or something with my friends who are better than me at that, I don't really give a shit.
Right.
It's like that, like if I want to be competitive, I'm going to play this game and I'm going to take it very seriously, but everything else or most other things in life at this point, it's like, I don't really care. If I really cared, I'd be playing TFT instead.
Correct. Yeah. I just feel like maybe because like I always felt like an underdog. Like for me, it was just kind of like, okay, like I don't mind doing that. And I just like, I get lost in those games. I think like you said so well, it's so funny. I never thought it like that, but it's like a larger movie. It's like I love watching old movies again. Like especially now with my daughter's 7, like I showed her Back to the Future, like all 3, and she like loved them. And which funny story, actually right after I finished that, I was in Cali and I was sitting and next to me, this guy sits down. I'm looking at him. I'm like, and I knew who it was. I said, "Oh, hi, my name is Benny." He's like, "Hello, my name is Chris." You know, and I was like, "Oh, hi, Chris." He's like, "What do you do?" He's like, "Oh, you know, just do stuff." I was like, "Oh, I saw recently you bought a Bored Ape." You know, it's Christopher Lloyd, and because I don't know if you saw like his, and he's like, "I don't know anything about that. That's my son." You know, and he's like. And then we sat for like the whole plane ride or most of it. I think he like ended up going like I was in business. They found the first class seat for him. But I was just telling him like I just finished watching my daughter and he like I said she loved it and he's like he was so genuine. He's like that means everything to me, you know. But just and it's funny enough. Just side note, she still talks about. She's like, I don't understand why he kissed his mother. Like, you know, like, you know, like,
She's like, I loved it, but I have some notes.
I have some questions here. You know, like,
is that normal?
Is that normal, Dad? I'm like, no. And I have to try to explain time travel, and I'm like, you know, but watching an old movie, it's like that. Like, I feel like when I play Zelda again or BioShock, it's like I'm like, you know, I just want to like watch that movie again.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's like I could sit down and watch the Lord of the Rings trilogy any weekend.
Do you ever watch like people play those games?
Yeah.
Rather than play it back yourself. Like
that's what I do a lot now. Yeah. Is like if I want to go through like The Last of Us again or something, I'll just watch them play through.
Yeah.
Because like it really is like a movie at that point.
Yeah. Like I think Twitch. That's where like I think we really missed the mark here. We have to find a way to like adopt.
I think Egro Capital is doing interesting things. They're like sponsoring Twitch streamers.
Yeah, like it's really smart because like Twitch is it? I when I'm like just sitting around, I'm like, all right, I need a brain dump. I'll just go on Twitch and someone's playing like fucking like Super Mario Brothers. I'm
Twitch
like,
is how I got good at video games.
Yeah,
I mean. Not necessarily, but like I would watch the best League of Legends players and I would just try to reverse engineer like every click. Like, why did he do that?
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
Dude,
why did he do that?
My friend, like the same guy, he's a poker player, he's a big video game player, he's like one of my best friends in the whole world. He's like fucking like one of the best killer instinct like players. Like it's insane. He was like top 20 in the world at one point or something. And I remember he was like watching it like. And he was saying like, oh, he obviously used XXY. Like, I don't know what he was talking about, but he was like watching Twitch, like, and he could see, you know, from the moves.
That's how I pick up new champions in League. I have a really hard time like conceptually watching a 4-minute video and thinking about how to use the character.
Right.
But if I watch one pro level player play that character for like one game, I'm like, okay, I know how to lane. I know at least what I'm looking for in the mid game. Like
It makes a difference, but it's also I really just enjoy like watching them. So it's funny. My daughter started. She wants to like I showed her this Twitch, so she started her. We did like a few Twitch channels now, like shows. Like you know, nobody's watching.
Yeah, it's fun.
She loves it. She's like she like talks to them. I set my computer up. She's like, okay, guys, we're gonna play this now, and you know, she talks to them, and I don't know. Like I think Twitch. I know that by Microsoft, right? They bought them. Right?
Amazon.
Amazon. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. I'm like, dude, this is that smart. Like, you know, I always was very bullish.
Like as a kid, it might help with like public speaking too. Like I was really scared to talk, probably till college. Yeah. But like trying to talk in front of an audience, even if it's imaginary, probably really helps.
Dude, speech classes, like teaching how to kids, like to like that's one of the things like I want to do. Like, you know, it's part of like e-gaming and stuff. It's like super important. Yeah. You know, that interaction with another human being, like as much as like you could type it, it's like, you know, you need to learn those skills, you know, and like, it's funny you say that because like I feel like I was never a good speaker. I still don't. Like I get so awkward, like, you know, like when I have to give speeches.
Feel the same.
Like, I'm like, man, this is terrible. Like it's like, but especially also like, I think it's important to teach these kids because, like, remember when we used to be on? I remember kids, they used to say the most horrible things when we were on Halo or Call of Duty. I was like, dude, haven't even heard those words before. I'm like, so I think that cleaning that up obviously is somewhat important. I know they're working on that, but I think Twitch has a really good way of like keeping that clean usually.
Yeah.
So I love Twitch. I'm like,
it's also such an interesting like community builder in a lot of ways too. Where I think of it a lot like a Twitter Spaces or something, where you have someone who's on and streaming and they're reading the chat, and it's like, maybe you don't know this person, but you donate $5 and they and reply to whatever your question was and have a conversation, even if it's just like for 30 seconds.
Well, it's like that access, right? It's like that microeconomy. Like again, it's all about access. Like if we grew up in like, I don't know, whatever. I'm trying to think of a time period like when there was like famous artists. Like we would never meet those artists. Even if we bought their art, we probably wouldn't meet them. Because A, the barrier to buy the art was hard because you had to have money. B, they probably were dead because they weren't famous until they were dead. And like C, there was like no way of like really interacting. Like the fact that like we could have a conversation, like I was saying this before, with these people like us. Like sitting there is like incredible, you know? And that's an access. So like you could buy a one-to-one from an artist and then they could DM you and be like, thank you. Like
I've become such good friends with artists I collect from that like I never would have thought in a million years I would be friends.
Right.
And it was just like being involved in spaces, collecting some artists I didn't even collect their art before I became good friends. Like Corey Van Loo.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a long time to like find the piece for me.
Yeah.
And like I became good friends with him, and it took like a year after being friends with him to finally get that piece. But it was like just being open and available on spaces, bringing up artists, talking about your work. Like it's something I never saw myself ever doing. Yeah. I always thought I'd just be like this competitive nerdy gamer, and then like fast forward into NFTs and it's like, oh, like now I'm like
you really are a community builder,
art supporter too. Like,
and you're building communities. I mean, like you're giving access again to Corey to speak to more people.
Yeah,
and usually artists don't have that. They have to like be represented, and they have to have somebody represent them. And then by the time that their painting gets sold, they're not making anything on it.
30% of it.
Yeah.
It's chopped up.
It's like
the
crazy.
Original message is distorted through the game of telephone,
like,
through the gallery.
A guy like Brendan Dawes, like, guy's like in the fucking MoMA.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. He's like, I love him. Like, he's brilliant, but now he's selling NFTs and he's like, I got my provenance, whatever you pronounce it. Like, that's crazy. Like, like it's his, like, and that's, I really think that that's going to change,
We were talking about Warhols, and it's like there's so many fraudulent Warhols.
Dude, it's like it's a problem. Yeah.
And you can't check the chain.
No, there's no chain. Like you go to the Warhol Foundation, and like they don't even have a 100% way to be like, oh yeah, this was made.
I think Dolly's the same problem now. I think that they have like there's like experts, but like it's really hard, and you got to get it proven, and it's like fucking like it's a lot.
Yeah, we were talking the other day about replica sneakers. It's like the same thing.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like literally billion-dollar companies like StockX are made because you can't verify whether these things are real or not.
It's so crazy to me that the blockchain is just like that, like in our face is like, okay, this is gonna work. Yet like people are still like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a database.
I kind of like that. I kind of like the middlemen. They're kind of fun,
I like paying a bigger rate.
I'm gonna pay some other guy to like tell me something. It's like when I bought my house. I remember I was sitting there. It's like fucking 7 people.
Yeah.
Besides at a table like this.
Yes.
With a 150, 200 page document.
And it's just me and the other guy and then 7 other people. I'm like,
sign here, sign here.
Sign here, sign here.
Like, you got a witness.
Yeah. And I remember, yeah, exactly. All right. Do you have a witness? I'm like, I remember saying to him, like, I was like, why do I need all of you here? And they're like, well, he does this, he does this, he does this, he does this. And I was thinking to myself, I'm like, dude, this is all going to be on the blockchain one day.
Yeah. You were just signing papers for an hour.
Yeah. Like, it was like I sat there and signed and signed.
Did you read any of it?
No, I didn't read shit. I didn't read shit. I was like, my wife asked me, she's like, what does it say? I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I want to get out of here.
I want the house.
Yeah, I want the house. I just want the keys.
They get to choose like our first daughter's name or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just part of it.
Like, yeah, it's all totally normal. Yeah. But like,
they said it's above board.
Yeah.
But like that's all for sure going to be on the blockchain. Like, it's so obvious to me, And like, I don't know if it's in my lifetime. I don't know if Ether's worth $5,000 or it's worth $20. And, that's the only thing I just don't know. Like, we could be using the blockchain and Ether could be just worth $20, right?
Yeah.
But it's still going to change the world, right? Like I'm not financial sort of whiz. I don't totally get that. Like a guy like Mando, I feel like he's like his brain just works like in these fucking crazy ways with like talking about all this shit. I'm like, I don't know, man, you know? But it's gonna the tech is gonna change everything, you know? So like to me it's like, you know, but those relationships, like Dave Krugman, right? So like I'm very close with Zanzibar and W. Savage.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like my brothers now. But like Dave, you know, like he's like my brother now, you know, and like I only knew him based off of like we bought a second Super Art piece. We met one night. We were just talking about, you know, mental health and how we feel like we just talked about normal things. And now, you know, I just worked with him on his project and like, you know, the Drip Drops, which was like fucking amazing, you know,
great.
And working with great people. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, this is awesome. Like I can never get this opportunity ever, ever, you know, hanging out with Julie Pacino, like, you know, like her being my friend, like the fuck, like we lived like these crazy, amazing lives. And I just think that we're just like in this period of like not even realizing how special it is, you know?
Yeah.
You know, so
I guess we're starting to run out of time, but one last question on like kind of that whole part of things of meeting artists and getting into crypto art and all of that. Were you, prior to NFTs and art, were you actively like an art enjoyer in the previous world? And was that something that like you desired? But I know you said your wife studied art history, so I imagine that like for me that was definitely not the case.
Right. So she kind of like really taught me a lot about art. The first time, I'll tell you like the first like I had some money. So I would go on Instagram and I would buy some art from like young artists that were on Instagram. That was really exciting to me. I have like my house full of it. And it would be like, so like I did it with my wife, so it was great. So it would be like specific things like with my kids. And like in 2000, I remember 18, 19, I think it was 19. I don't remember. My wife said, let's go. My friend Vlad Ginsburg, who is in the art world and sort of owns Block Party and who's moving towards NFTs, said you should come to this digital art show. So I went with him and my wife and we go downstairs. There's like 2 floors and there was like 2 sides of the room. And my wife said, let's buy some art because I could buy with Ether. So I was really excited because I didn't have to use dollars, right? It was like called Art 2X Code. I don't remember the name of the company, whatever. One side of the room was this one thing I wanted. The other side was what she wanted. What I wanted was these frames of these things called CryptoPunks that had like the physical like,
QR code.
code. It was like insane. Like and they were selling them for like, I don't know, $1,000 or something. It was something like, you know. And I got outvoted because she's my wife. And we bought 2 fine art pieces from Dmitry Cherniak instead. And at the time I was like, oh man, you know, I ended up buying a punk because I was like so upset I missed out on that. But now I have these 2, you know, Dimitri pieces that are like fucking amazing. It was before he did Ringers.
Yeah.
One's sitting in my parents' house, like on the wall, and they have no idea what it is. They're just like, they like think it's amazing. They're like, oh yeah, it looks so cool. Meanwhile, I'm like, by the way, it probably has a lot of value to it. You know?
Yeah, like just don't get rid of it.
Just don't get rid of it. Yeah, like, just be careful.
Same artist sold some for like 2,100.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and it's not an NFT. And I remember actually like I was like, oh, maybe he'll give me an NFT of it. And he's like, nope, that's my fine art. And I was like, okay, cool. And that's like when he said that, I kind of like was talking to my wife, and it made me realize like more of like a love for like you know I started really getting a passion for it. It connected to my wife a lot. Like we have like great conversations now because I think we always like were very connected, but like we had something to talk about even more. And I love getting my kids involved, you know, and like, you know, so we go into museums and stuff like that. So like, I just also find that it's a creative outlet for myself because I'm not an artist, right? I feel like you kind of feel the same way. Like I wish I was an artist.
Same. I'm so not creative.
Like I wish I could paint. I wish I could sing. I wish I could play an instrument. I can't do any of that. You know?
No, 100%.
So it was like, fuck, I want to do that, but I can't. So like, then what's the next best thing? Well,
buying other
people's shit that do that and then becoming friends with them. I'm like, well, this is the best of both worlds, you know? And like, so I get to work with Dave Krugman on his drop, and I'm like, okay, like, I feel accomplished in some ways because like I was part of that, you know, like it was all his art, all Ben Strauss and Marco and Transient Labs work. but like in the sense of like I was part of that, and that's what makes for me the most exciting part about it.
Also, that's really cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So, I mean, like I definitely, I really believe this is the future. But before we go, I do got a present for Deeze. Okay, so because he has a house and he loves shrooms, I got you these amazing lights.
Oh my goodness!
Oh my God.
Shroom lights for outside.
Mushroom lights.
Mushroom lights for outside.
I'll have to take a picture of this when they're set up. I have a turtle, and then I have a frog out in our front yard, and the frog has a big pipe.
Then you're gonna put them right in between. So Deeze, I wanted.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
we also do have one parting question, courtesy of Deeze, that we've done now.
Okay.
This is our third time in a row. I think it's going to be our little bit at the end.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm just gonna keep giving props to the person I stole it from first.
Okay.
I met this wonderful person in Bahamas named Eshe. I went on his podcast and he asked me this question.
Okay.
And it made me think. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna start taking this and asking it. So the question is, if you had an autobiography, what would the title be?
Well,
and you can take your time and think about it.
So hard because like, you know, my self-confidence is tough. Like I'm very hard on myself. So like I'm never feeling like I'm doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's it.
Doing enough?
Maybe no. I maybe like something. I feel like. Yeah, like I'm trying to think. It's like maybe I'm never doing enough. Something like that. Because like to me, I just feel like I could be doing so much better. It's very hard on me, like, you know, in that sense. So I feel like my whole life is like that. Like, I wish I was a better father, even though, like, I'm probably a great father. My wife tells me that all the time.
You're a good father.
Yeah. And, like, or I wish I could be nicer and better. Like, I could buy my art from artists and, like, you know, but I already do, like, you know, that, like, my event on Monday, like, our event on Monday, like, I knew I could have done it better. I just wish I could. I guess if I had a title, it would be probably, like, you know, am I doing enough?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And because I just want, leave like this, like our lives are so short, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't live forever. You know, one day maybe we will if we're old enough, but like, this is it. Like, you know, I'm not to get in the argument of heaven or hell exists or anything like that, but even if it does, whatever, like our time here is so short. It's like Ray Liotta passed away, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It was like so weird to me. I'm like, I said to my wife, I'm like, he passed away. We enjoyed this guy's movies. Like, you know, he was a meme, he's this and that. And then he's just gone, you know? And like, it was kind of weird. It's like, he'll fade into like the nothingness of the world. Like, you know, I started thinking a lot about that. Like, I'll remember my parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
My kids will remember my parents somewhat, but my grandkids will have no clue. Like, I'll send them pictures of what they're like, okay, like, you know, oh, that's so nice. Like, our sort of memories and who we are will only last a certain amount of time in this world. So, like, I just want to do everything I can or to feel like I've accomplished something, or like I'll just feel like, you know, I just wasted my time.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know if that.
I think you're doing enough. Don't be too hard on yourself, man. Of all the people I know in this space, like you're.
I appreciate that.
Giving back.
I don't even know why you had me on this podcast. I'm like, so many other bitter people you guys could have.
Because we love you, dude. Like,
I love you guys.
This is fucking awesome. This is great.
Like, I feel like a lot of people will resonate with your story, but they just haven't heard it too. Like, I feel like that was one of the reasons. Like, I met you in Miami. We were having a photography dinner.
Yeah.
And like within like 10 minutes, I was like, wow, like I really
we vibe like
strong
really,
connection.
Yeah. I think it's like there's like just again like that's the honesty in a lot of people, like, you know, when we met also I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Like, this is, we could change things. We could make them really better. But, you know, not to get too deep, but like, you know, I really truly, again, just to go back in this last thing, like if we somehow, my dad used to say to me, you can't solve the world problems at your dinner table.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't wrong, but I don't agree with him right now. I actually think we can, because our dinner tables are massive sort of infrastructures to speak to everybody and reach out to more people. Back in the day, they didn't have that option. Mm-hmm. So it'd just be like, hey, you're just having dinner and like you can't solve the world problems. And that allowed people to take control and do things that just were able to because they had the means. Now we have this ability to like do the opposite because everybody has some kind of control and power.
Yeah.
You know, that could be a bad thing, obviously. But the good thing is that if you have really good people, it's like, hey, we can really make a difference.
Yeah, no, totally. I feel like we're really positioned and empowered to make the difference that we want to see, which is awesome.
Yeah. So.
It's a very, very wise words. I feel like I had something smart to say and I just like completely lost it during all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we can probably end it on that.
Yeah.
That's great. No, yeah.
I appreciate it. Like,
do you have anything else you want to let people know
any
about?
shout outs? I mean, we'll put a link to your Twitter and whatever you want in the shout outs.
I mean, just really shout out to like all the artists. Like, honestly, like to me, it's all about that. Like, you know, my 2 partners are amazing. I just feel like again, last night, you know, was like a really special night for me. Like, I was hanging out with Snowfro and he was a person, right? And like that to me is like what this is all about. Like, it's not about, you know, what PFP you're flipping. It's sort of like, you know, having those drinks with Dave Krugman and Snowfro and like and Brendan Dawes texting me like, hey, I'm really excited about my next project. And like, you know, Micah Johnson talking to me about education. Like, dude, like I this is like, you know, like this is like where like my heart is. Like, I really feel so strongly about that. So like the shout out I would have is just to like all of those, not them, not just them, but like everybody, you know, sort of like just don't stop. Because like if we stop, it's going to be over. But if we just power through this, I truly feel like this is the art renaissance that's going to change everything. So
yeah, I feel like your experience with education too really gives like a unique wisdom. Like you've seen generations of kids go from K through 12. Yeah. And you see the growth that is possible, but you also see the time it takes. Yeah. I feel like a lot of us in crypto are under 30 and maybe a little more impatient than we should be. And I feel like having like some words of wisdom where it's like, hey, like zoom out, be patient. Like this is what it's like.
For sure.
You're such a good example for that. And like,
I just feel like I've seen like kids grow. I've grown. Like, it took me a long time to get my shit together. And also I think having a family, and this is not knocking anybody who doesn't. Like, I totally understand people who want kids, but being fiscally responsible and sort of like, okay, I got to think about my kids also, and like watching them grow. That also gives, I think, a little bit light to, like, I do feel like sometimes I connect with people who have kids a little bit more because they're like, you know, they're like, yeah, well, of course I sold my punk because I want to make sure my kid goes to college. You know, and I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. So like, I feel like we'll see more of that, you know. But I think the space is just growing. Yeah. I think we're just like so young, and I think like we just have to, I know like the losses suck, but I feel like
it's part of the game.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming and doing this.
No, guys, thank you so much. I don't know what else. Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, this is going to be great. I really hope you guys.
No, I'm excited. I think Andy and I, we've been on so many different podcasts, either like on Riverside FM or in person. Yeah. He had one recently. I had one a couple months ago in person where it was like, wow, the vibe was just way different. Like if I'm on Riverside FM, I'm not gonna lie, I have Twitter and Discord up. I'm frequently distracted. I have ADD. I'm like constantly looking at the scrolling thing. Yeah. Here it's like my phone's in my pocket, it's on silent. Right. You know, it's just like I can make eye contact with you.
For sure.
Feel engaged. And the conversation quality is less structured and like more free flowing.
No, you guys were
way better.
You guys like were born for this. This
awesome.
Great.
Yeah, well, thank you. Next time let's get Dave on as well. We'll do a whole
Oh my god. Yeah. I told Dave, I said, let's come this time. He's like, no, you go alone. I'm like, hey, but next time you come with me.
Dave would be great.
I'll sit there and we'll let him talk, but he like he says, he just puts bars out. Like I say things and then he'll say them and it sounds like poetry. And I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Like, how do you come up with that? But I would love to come on with him.
Awesome.
It would be great.
That would be great.
Yeah. Dave, there you hear it. Next time you got to come on.
You're invited,
listening to this.
That's it.
All right. Yeah.
All right, guys. Again. Thank you so much.